Back to Holloway, top of the circle, open to Folk. One-timer, score! Saros didn't even flinch. That puck was in and out of the net before Saros moved. Blues win the face-off, and Holloway breaks out with Kyrou 2-on-1. Holloway in to Kyrou, score! 6:15 to go in the third period, and Jordan Kyrou's going to send some fans to the exits. It's 4-1 St. Louis. After losing to the Predators 3 times last year, the Blues have won the first 2 meetings. 2 seconds to go. Bring out the Zamboni. You can hear the Blues fans cheering, and there's a lot of them down here tonight. The St. Louis Blues beat the Predators by a score of 4-1.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen.
There are words you are not allowed to use.
The anticipation building. And no, I'm not reaching for that hat. I will not do so. Blues have won 3 straight games. Another impressive showing last night in Nashville. A tough place to play despite the fact that that team stinks. That felt like strangely a playoff game.
Yeah.
It had some physicality to it. A couple of cheap shots by Nashville. Just a strange overall performance by them. You can tell that's a team that's frustrated with the way that their season has gone. But, dude, the Blues have become the team that nobody wants to play. I can't believe this is where we're at. I've heard, we'll go ahead and get into this real quick. I've had multiple people text me over the last 4 days or so saying something to the effect of, can the Blues catch the Wild? And I had 3 of them last night. And I'm like, man, A, I don't think so. And B, I'm not sure I want to. And the reason why is because I think Winnipeg is over there shaking in their boots. They're thinking to themselves, I hope that the St. Louis Blues catch the Wild, because I would rather play the Minnesota Wild, the Calgary Flames, Vancouver Canucks, whoever, than this team that's been playing playoff hockey for a month now with a hot goalie and a history of making the Winnipeg Jets miserable in the postseason. The St. Louis Blues, that's who they are now, man. They are the team that we have one of these every year. They have emerged as the team now that nobody wants to play. They have won 10 of their last 14 games, points in 12 of their last 14. They've allowed 3 or fewer in regulation in 12 of their last 14 games. At 5-on-5, good luck trying to get any high danger chances against this team right now. Since the Blackhawks game right before the break, they're 2nd in the league in goals per game and 10th in the league in goals allowed per game. It's a legit top 10 team in the NHL right now. You could argue top 5 to 7 team in the NHL right now. It's fun as hell to watch. I'm enjoying every second of it. Jordan Kyrou looks amazing. Dylan Holloway, once again, a great game by him last night. Alex, I'm internalizing this as, this is great. I'm sure you've got some Cheerios to pee in this morning, though, because you're always pessimistic about the Blues. How you feeling,
No,
man?
that's just the Cardinals, and that'll start next Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. But you know what? You might get a pretty positive Ferrario because the Blues are playing well. You're right. And I would go even further to say I don't think there's any team in the Western Conference that wants to play the Blues right now. And I know that's a very bold thing to say. You don't want to play a team that's been playing playoff hockey for 2 months. You don't want to play a team that has a Jordan Binnington on the other side. The Blues have an identity, and that's what Nashville has just suffered from. It's what Minnesota suffered from. Frankly, it's what every team that has had to go through since the Four Nations break. And I know the Dallas Stars game was a loss. Yep, that was an anomaly on the penalty kill. And know that the Pittsburgh Penguins game won. Frankly, Pittsburgh should be very thankful they won that game because Tristan Jarry saved them. The Blues have bulldozed their way through any type of team that they run into right now, and that's why things should be very cautious for the opposition. And Winnipeg, absolutely. If you're the Winnipeg Jets, I think we've said this before on the show, the front office, my guess is, doesn't trust their goaltender because Connor Hellebuck has a tendency of not getting the job done in the playoffs. But yes, if you're Winnipeg, you've got PTSD from 2019. If your team's any team in the Pacific Division right now, which, by the way, I don't think they catch Minnesota, but there's always a chance. Any Pacific Division team right now has had their fits with the Blues. The Blues are the one team that everybody around them is going to be looking at being like, oh, I hope we avoid them at some point. Because of this identity. 5-on-5, they're about as locked in as you can ask for. They've got 4 lines that go from top to bottom. Their defense has been significantly involved. And oh, by the way, They are still doing this without Colton Parayko. And
crazy.
And you've got two goaltenders. You know, Winnipeg doesn't have two goaltenders. A lot of these teams, Colorado doesn't have two goaltenders. The Blues have two guys that if one slips up, the other one can step in. So where the Blues are at right now, not only are the top three teams in both divisions probably looking down saying like, boy, I hope this doesn't go in our favor. I think the teams around the Blues, Vancouver, Calgary, Utah, they're about to have the pressure put on them for the final 13 games of the season.
I think it's on them now. I think we've officially arrived there. And you look at it like part of what, if you were somebody that was optimistic about the Blues 2 weeks ago, part of that was, man, the Blues have a pretty easy strength of schedule the rest of the way. That was part of what played into it, along with the fact that they had been playing better hockey. You combine the two, it was like, okay, there's something here if they can take advantage of it. T-Bone, as you're watching this team right now, what comes to mind for you?
I'm with you guys. I feel like they are one of those teams that you look at and go, man, you don't want to face them once they get to the playoffs. And for me, it's not only are they the team that's playing well, but they're playing well with, I mean, you mentioned the defense is playing well without Parayko, but they've got four lines going right now. I mean, it would be one thing if this was a hot streak and you really only had your top six playing well. Then if you're a playoff team, you could look at that and go, okay, if we shut down one of those lines, we've probably got ourselves a good chance. Can't really do that with the St. Louis Blues right now. You look at them and you can't really game plan for one line. Now, your goal is going to be to shut down that Chen, Holloway, Kyrou line. But if you shut them down, Thomas's line can pick it up. Or the third line in Sundqvist, Bolduc, and Joseph can pick up the slack a little bit at times. So that's what makes it so... This feeling about them being a dangerous team is they're running four deep right now with their lines. And then on top of it, I mean, not only do they have the two goalies that they trust right now, and Hofer was fantastic last night. Really good. We also know about big game Binnington, right? So, like, if you can get to the playoffs, no team wants to face him because they saw that Blues team 3 years ago, I guess it was at this point, that could have taken down the Colorado Avalanche and who gave them their biggest test when Binnington was in the net. Oh, bad timing.
You getting emotional?
I apologize. No, I had to sneeze.
It wasn't emotional.
I thought he was just going to start, like, crying.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it.
By the way, when he mentioned, you know, like, pessimistic, oh, Alex, you're so pessimistic. So I was like, man, what could you, like, look at them right now and go, what could be pessimistic on the Blues? Oh, only 4 goals against the Predators? Slackers?
No,
you're beating all bad teams?
Honestly, let's take that angle real quick.
I don't know.
What is it?
Oh, okay. This is a positive. What is it? Okay,
yeah,
I like this.
I don't know. Like,
if you were going to complain about what we're seeing right now.
Not even the PK. I told you guys, and I tweeted this last night. You take that Dallas game out since the Four Nations break, which was an anomaly. They went 0 for 4. They're clipping at 90.9%, which is the best in the NHL.
I will say, if there is one thing that I feel like is not sustainable from what we've seen, and I know I'm going to come off as pessimistic, it would be the PK. Like, that is the only one that I would look at and say, yeah, that one feels like a hot streak, doesn't it?
I think the pessimistic route, if you were going to go it, is what we just got on the Air Comfort Service text line saying, like, wait, isn't this playing playoff hockey couldn't lead to a huge letdown once the playoffs begin? Meaning you're playing so much desperation hockey, once you get in, you finally sit there and you're like, oh, good, we got in, and then you've got that letdown. I don't think this team's going to fall victim to that because they've got this mindset right now to where what Jim Montgomery said Sunday, they're looking for challenges. They're creating challenges themselves so that they can overcome them. I don't think a letdown happens. I think you get into the playoffs, the Blues are even more confident for what they've done for the last 2 months.
So I had somebody text me last night and ask, can the Blues catch the Minnesota Wild? And I basically said, no, I don't think so. And the reason why is very simple. Like, right now, there's just not a lot of games remaining, and you're still, as of today, 6 points back of the Minnesota Wild, and they've played one fewer game than you. So you're effectively 5 games back of the Minnesota Wilds with 14 games to go for them and 13 games to go for you. That's a lot to make up, man. They would have to go on a huge slide, which I suppose is technically possible. It's just highly, highly unlikely.
The schedule is where I guess if you were an optimistic type, you could look at and you say, because Minnesota does have the Kraken and the Sabres. Those are pretty easy games if you're Minnesota. But then they go through a stretch that's Dallas, Vegas, Washington, New Jersey, Rangers, Islanders, Stars, Sharks, Flames, Canucks.
You'd have to go like 10-3. They'd have to go 5-9. I just think that's unlikely. It's possible. I'm never going to say nothing. Nothing is impossible. It's just very unlikely. But my question back to that person was this, Alex. Are the Blues an actually good team, or are they playing their hot stretch right now? Because we've seen Calgary go through this, right? Utah went through this. We've seen a lot. Vancouver had this moment. we've seen all of the teams that are battling with the Blues right now. They've all had some stretch of like 12 games over the course of the regular season where they looked the way that the Blues do currently. So my question for you guys is, are the Blues just good now? Did they figure it out? And over that Four Nations face-off, like there's a very clear break point as to when this style of play has begun? Or are we going to look back on it and say, man, that was an awesome 10 to 15 game stretch. It's too bad that wasn't sustainable over the long run. They couldn't quite keep that peak, but it showed us what this team is capable of, and that's something that we can cling to. What do you think we're going to look back on this stretch as, Alex?
That they have found the structure that brings consistency. I don't think this is a hot streak. And why I say that is go back to last year when Drew Bannister took over. Once he was fired, Craig Berube was fired and Drew Bannister took over, the Blues went 12-7-1. That was when, by January 30th, we were like, hey, they might actually make this something that happens and get into the playoffs. They went into the All-Star break, and then they came out of that All-Star break. They lost 3 in a row. They won 2. They lost 3 in a row. They won 4 in a row. They lost 3 in a row. You have not seen that at all. And if I remember that correctly last year, which sometimes games run together for me.
Sure.
There were games that you walked into and you were like, oop, that doesn't look like the same Blues team. I still was going into games last season going, who's going to show up? Which team is going to show up? Have you once turned on the radio, because I know you guys only listen exclusively to Alex Ferrario on pregames.
100%.
Have you ever walked into a game and said, I don't know what team's showing up tonight?
You're talking about during the
Since
stretch.
the Four Nations break.
Not yet. Not yet. And I only leave that open because I just don't know what's going to come from here, but not yet, no.
And even the losses. Dallas dominated Dallas at 5-on-5. Your penalty kill sucked. Pittsburgh dominated the Penguins. Their goaltender robbed you. Those were the losses that we're talking about right now. So why I think this is actually, they've got a system that they believe in and it's going to be consistent is because last year when we thought that they were doing the same thing, they had their down moments where it was like, nope, not going to work.
Where do you fall on that, T-Bone? Are we going to look back on this as the hot stretch? And I don't think that's being pessimistic. I didn't think they had this in them, much less any kind of like a sustained run down the stretch. So are we going to look back on this and say, that was their hot streak. They still had their flaws. They weren't quite the well-rounded team that they appeared to be during that 12 to 15 game stretch. Or is this who the Blues are now? And this is going to be what they are for the next 3 to 5 years.
I think that this is not a hot streak. I think this is who they're going to be. And the reason I say that is I keep going back to the conversations we had in that part of the season where I didn't see this coming for the Blues. And I kept going, this doesn't make sense because I keep looking at individuals and going, great year. Like Holloway was having a great year. Robert Thomas had that weird stretch where he didn't play well, but for the most part has had another great season. Cairo having a great year. Zach Bolduc having a great year. And yet I kept looking at it and I kept saying, man, all these individuals, Broberg having a great year. And I kept going, how are they not winning when I keep saying this? And this should equal to where they are winning hockey games. And I think what you have seen is it's now, and I don't think it was an individualistic style from the Blues early on in the season, but I think what has happened is it's all just gelled together. And the one piece that we kept saying is, well, we can circle the one guy that is the reason for this. It was Booch. And I think Booch was hurt.
Thomas gets that combination.
In that stretch. For the most part, though, Thomas has been good this season.
Outside of a month where they really had, it was their worst month of the season, and it coincided with Robert Thomas having his worst month in like 3 years.
But the reason I don't, and it's fair to put him in that conversation, the reason I say about Booch is because Booch didn't play well for the whole first half of the season.
Totally fair.
Wow, that's not his fault.
Now that he's playing well, again, everything has fallen back in order, and that's why I feel like this is sustainable.
Yeah, well, the other one that I would put the label on that's made a massive change is bringing in Cam Fowler because you've solidified your top 4. You've got an offensive threat, and we're going to get into this later. I believe that we are going to look back on what took place in this post-Four Nations break the same way we looked back on 2011, 2012 when Ken Hitchcock took over and said, now is when their window's opening.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can check us out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. In the YouTube chat earlier, Alex, it was like 11:04. They said, it's 11:04. What's taking you guys so long?
We were slow to get. It was like the tortoise and the hare. You know, we were taking our time to get to the microphones.
iRock says, this show always gets screwed a little bit. TMA goes over, and then the fast lane gets mad when they don't start on time.
And we yell at BK for not managing the clock properly.
It's all good. The guys, they assured us it will never happen again.
Jackson was very apologetic for the 5th time in the last 2 weeks.
This time, it'll be different. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to get into our 20 most important players with number 8 on that list. And we got to talk a little bit about the Dodgers. Dude, is this just going to be the best team we've ever seen? Because it feels very much in play at this point. But next, the NCAA Tournament technically began last night. We saw 2 games and 1 team that looked the part of the NCAA Tournament team, even though everybody was trying to convince you they had no chance of winning once they got there. We'll tell you who that is next here on 101 ESPN. Alex, we had a couple of winners yesterday for the first 4, and also, Alex, had a winner for you last night in the St. Louis Blues game. It was all available to you over at the Circa Sports app in the state of Illinois. Circa's doing fantastic stuff for this year's NCAA tournament. They're going to give you the best money lines. They're going to give you the best odds. They recommend shop around, see what else is out there. They think you're going to come back. You're going to get the best odds over at Circa. So for tonight, first 4, going back to this, I've got Xavier to win straight up against Texas, mostly because I know T-Bone is afraid of them. I've also got Mount St. Mary's to win straight up against American. A slight underdog in that one, Alex. $100 bet. Parlay those together, wins you $262 on the first 4 tonight in the NCAA tournament.
Look, this is prime Ferrario season over these next 4 days because I'm going to be having a lot of 10, 12-leg parlays because over at Circa Sports Illinois, you're bringing in the most money possible. They're not limiting you based off of your winnings. So whether it's those futures bets, those big parlays, you're getting the most money possible on those large market bets. And if you don't believe me, if you don't believe us, go check out those other apps because they know you'll be back over at Circa Sports Illinois. If you or some you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Here we go. This is where dreams are made.
They're going for it all.
Simpson home run play. The deflection. Oh! seconds left. Alabama State in front.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, first four was fun last night, man. I'm not somebody that believes this tournament needs to have 68 teams. I think it was fine at 64. Just start the tournament. Let's go. Let's see what it looks like. I don't think you need 68 teams. But if you're going to do it, that was a hell of a way to begin with Alabama State versus St. Francis.
Yeah, that first one was. The second one, not so much.
Second one at least provided us a storyline. And that's all I ask right now.
I guess that's true.
I don't care about these first four games. Give me fun, entertaining games or give me a headline. And we got both of those last night. St. Francis dribbled the ball off their leg like 16 different times in the final minute of that game. Alabama State took advantage with a heave-ho, Hail Mary, basically. Yeah. They ran mesh on the final play of the game.
Nice.
Somebody ended up coming up with it and then hit the right shot. Fun game to start. Alabama State, congratulations. You made it to the actual tournament. Now it's about to end for you there. But you got there. The bigger one to me, Alex, yesterday was the North Carolina beatdown. Absolute beatdown of San Diego State. They won by nearly 30 points, and it was basically over by, 10 minutes into that game? Didn't have to watch anymore if you really weren't interested. I had it on the background just because, I
had it up on our TV in here because we had the Blues on the other one, and I stopped watching after the first half.
No need.
It was done.
You knew what was going to happen. The reason why I found it so great, it wasn't technically a quad one game because San Diego State was right on the outside of the top 50 in net. So, in North Carolina, still one win against quad one teams this year. More importantly, though, everybody and their mother was telling you how North Carolina didn't deserve to be in the tournament. They're not good enough to be in the tournament. Blah, 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 blah. Dude, if you're close, if you're a bubble team, give me the team that has the best chance to beat the other teams that are in the tournament. And North Carolina gave you that chance. They're talented. If you look at any of the predictive metrics, they're better than all of the teams that they were potentially going to be up against. I get it. Nobody wanted to see North Carolina, but everybody knew this is what's going to happen. They were going to get into the tournament, and not only are they going to win that first game, dude, they're going to win their first round matchup. It's going to happen. We all know how this is going to go. So I thought that was great last night. Alex, what was your reaction to the first four?
I loved it too, and I say it all the time. Gary Parrish was one of my favorite basketball analysts, and I was listening to their podcast, and he is talking about as mad-ish on North Carolina as you can ask for. And then, of course, last night after they won, he goes, "Screw it, UNC should have been a number 4 seed going into this one."
I mean,
I think those teams are always dangerous. They always seem to be dangerous, and it's no coincidence I have them going to the Sweet 16 in my bracket, because now that UNC has gotten in and everybody has been saying that they didn't deserve to be in, their resume stinks, they shouldn't be a tournament, there's conspiracy going on, cool. Enjoy North Carolina making an interesting bracket this year and ruining a lot of people's brackets, because this is what happens in March.
Yeah, and they're the classic team where, I agree, typically you end up with a first four team that ends up going on a little bit of a run. You really don't want to be talking about a team where basically the whole headline from the field of 68 is North Carolina is the least deserving team to be here. Okay, well, great. Now you just gave them the press clippings that they need to go on a run. It was the least shocking thing that we saw last night. The 16-seed game, that was fun. I mean, incredible play to end that one. But when you look at North Carolina, you knew they were going to come out and just win that basketball game. Now, I didn't expect them to win in that kind of a fashion where they dominated from start to finish. They're right now maybe the most dangerous team in the tournament because of the momentum that they've got and because of the press clippings that are out there that said they were not deserving it. I would not be shocked. I agree with you. I had Ole Miss originally on my bracket getting to the Sweet 16 because I had them winning and whoever it was that won that game. Now we know it's North Carolina. I had them beating Iowa State, who's dealing with injuries, and then I had them falling to Michigan State. Not anymore. North Carolina is the one that I got dancing with Michigan State at this point because of this run.
Well, because I have Lipscomb taking on Iowa State. We talked about this, and then I've got UNC taking down Ole Miss, and then, I've got UNC taking on Lipscomb, because now you're talking about a team that has momentum, and it all started from everybody saying they didn't deserve to be in the tournament.
We just all knew this was what it was going to go, how it was going to go. You look at their resume, and, they lost basically every quad one game they played this year. And you heard that from everybody. They were 9-0 in quad two, so they beat some of the good but not great teams on their schedule. Most of the teams that they lost to that were quad one games, can I read some of these for you, Alex? Because it becomes increasingly more frustrating for me to hear the way that people describe their resume. Dude, they just played awesome teams that everybody lost to this year. They played against Auburn and Michigan State and Alabama and Florida and Louisville and Duke 3 times. That's 8 of their losses. I just read you a list of basically the top 10 teams in the country.
They lost to the team that everybody's expecting to win the whole thing 3 times.
Yes.
And they didn't deserve to be in. Yeah, that
Yes.
makes sense.
They lost to them 3 times. Florida, who's a 1 seed, that I think is the second most picked team to win the NCAA tournament right now. Auburn, who is the overall number 1 seed. They lost to them. A lot of people are picking them to win it all. Alabama, who is like one of the top 2 seeds.
What a trash team.
I get it. Nobody wanted to see them. Everybody hates North Carolina. You don't need me to cry for them. But they were 30th in KenPom. 30th. VCU is 31st. Everybody loves them. Oregon is 5 seed. 33rd in KenPom. You really like UConn, right, Alex?
Yeah.
UConn is 35th. I love UCSD, a team that a lot of people are picking as that 5-12 upset over there. I think they got Michigan in the first round, if I'm not mistaken. 37th in KenPom. Texas and Xavier, the 2 teams that are fighting tonight to battle off against Illinois in the first round. They're 41st and 42nd in KenPom. So all of these teams that I just read off rated lower than North Carolina, who everybody was telling you as of yesterday afternoon had no explanation as to why they were getting into the tournament. So anyways, they're in. They're officially going to be playing in the first round. Good for UNC. Here's my question for you now, Alex. Now that we have 2 more teams that are officially into the tournament, I keep looking at this bleeping bracket. And I keep trying to make changes because I look at it and I see, I'm going over to my Elite 8 and I see 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. I have 1 or 2 seed into my Elite 8 right now. And I can't change it. I keep looking up and down and I try to find the upsets. I keep doing more research. I keep reading more. I keep trying to find the place where it's like, okay, where are these teams going to stumble? I can't find it. I don't believe it exists. Now, I'm destined to be wrong because that's what the tournament's all about, but I think this feels different this year. And I don't think I normally say that. I can typically, you guys know, we do the brackets together. What is this, year 4 of us doing the brackets together?
Yep.
We go through this every year, and I typically have like an 11 seed or a 10 seed, somebody that's just kind of off the wall. They go on this crazy run. You can find it based on their path to the Elite 8. Typically not Final 4, but Elite 8 that you can get them there. I don't know who the 1 or 2 seed is, or at least a region where you can't find a 3 seed then that won't make it to the Elite 8. These teams are too good. They're better than your typical 1 and 2 seeds, in my opinion. And I think there is a lack of like the middle ground teams compared to normal seasons. And I think some of that might have to do with the transfer portal, guys transferring up more than they have in the last few years. So I don't have very many upsets that get into the Elite 8, Final 4 type of range. I've got basically 1s and 2s playing once we get to the last couple of weekends of the tournament.
Yeah, all my upsets that I have are like 11 and 10s, couple of 14s, but those don't get past the first or the second round. And then once you get there, I mean, my Elite 8 is 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. And then my Final 4 is most likely going to be 1, 1, 1, 1. So, yeah, this is about as chalky as you can ask for, but I'm with you. And T-Bone was talking about this in the office. Like, I've been giving the upper hand and the edge to all of these SEC teams when it comes down to a decision that I can't make. But more than anything, I look at this and I say, I don't see how this number 1 seed is going to lose at any point, or this number 2 seed is going to lose at any point. And I know that is, a probably broken bracket by the first day mentality. But I just think I think it's top heavy this year in terms of the best teams in terms of March Madness.
Yeah, on paper, I agree with that, but I just know that we're going to see something. Because I do think there are some of these 1, 2s, and 3s that I don't know if saying they're vulnerable is fair, but like Duke, for example. I mean, Cooper Flagg's got an ankle sprain. He's playing on that, and they are young. Now, they're not losing to a 16 seed, but would it be a surprise if they lose Mississippi State? Yeah, but I'm not going to rule it out, though, because of the injuries and their lack of experience. I've just seen this happen before. Bruce Pearl, you know what he is? He's like the Cardinals with runners in scoring position. He chokes in March.
True that.
That is on his resume. So I wouldn't be shocked if Auburn goes home early. And by the way, they didn't play well down the home stretch. I think the region that has this potential is going to be the Midwest region, which I know we'll break down a little bit earlier. But Tennessee, they like to play a little bit slower of a style. They're much of a defensive slugfest team. I can see where they can't hang around. Kentucky's dealing with injuries. I can see where they get a little bit surprised early on.
But that's a 3. I'm not talking about the 3. Set the 3s aside.
Sure,
I'm talking about the 1s and 2s.
I think the 1s and 2s. I think Houston and Tennessee, I look at them and I say, okay, and like Houston, again, Houston's the same way. I feel like we talk about them all the time going into the tournament, and then they find a way to surprise us and end up going home early. So I think we are not going to see the chalk 1-2, 1-2, 1-2 in the Elite Eight. I think there's also going to be a team that's 4 and below that ends up surprising us. And I wouldn't be shocked if it's like Illinois, it's Missouri. There are a couple of 6 seeds that have high ceilings.
Houston's my team that I'm worried about, and we'll get into that coming up later on today. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Questions and answers in 15 minutes. But coming up next, we continue our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2025 season with number 8 on this list. We're getting close to the end of this thing. We'll tell you who number 8 is next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK. It is time to unlock your inner champion, and the place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. Check them out today online at victorymenshealth.com. You can find their 4 great locations over there: O'Fallon, Illinois, O'Fallon, Missouri, Sunset Hills, and the location that I typically attend over in Town and Country. When you walk through the door, it's going to feel like you are with friends and family over there. It doesn't feel the way that it does at some of the other low testosterone places in town where you walk in, you're like, man, it's a dimly lit hospital setting, basically? That's not what it's like at Victory Men's Health. They're going to unlock your inner champion, and that can mean different things for different folks. Maybe you're dealing with some erectile dysfunction. Low testosterone is something that affects a lot of men, especially my age and a little bit older. Weight loss goals that you're trying to meet that can be difficult. They can help you out with that over at Victory Men's Health. You can also learn more about their vitamin infusions, their supplement shop, their red light therapy program, and cardiovascular testing. It's all available to you today at Victory Men's Health and online at victorymenshealth.com.
Tanner Hendricks here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, Blues got 2 crucial points as they took down the Nashville Predators in regulation 4-1. They are off today before they return to action tomorrow night when they host the Vancouver Canucks. Well, pregame coverage starting at 5:30 with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 6:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. Cardinals back in spring training action in just about 20 minutes as they take on the Washington Nationals. Steven Matz will be on the mound for St. Louis. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, you can hear the first 4 games as well. Pregame coverage starting at 5:30 for American versus Mount St. Mary's, and then we'll have Texas versus Xavier with tip-off scheduled around 8:10 tonight. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Brendan Donovan comes in at number 8 on our list of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2025 season. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, we're starting to get into the top echelon of our most important Cardinals for 2025. Alex, I had him at number 5 on my list. T-Bone had him all the way up at number 13. You had him closer to me at number 6. Here's one of the reasons why I think Brendan Donovan is so important. He's going to be a part of your long-term future. I know he's probably a little older than most fans would expect. He's still 27. He is now into the prime of his career. The next 4 years should be the best portion of Brendan Donovan's career, basically. And the Cardinals have him under contract for all of those seasons. More importantly, he can play wherever. If you need a left fielder starting next year, he's going to be out there every day. If you need a second baseman every day, he can do that. First baseman, got you. Third baseman, he could probably go ahead and go over there for you. Right field, cool, no problem. Brendan Donovan can fit, and even honestly, DH. If you needed it, if you have all of those spots and you have a plus defender at every spot, I'd be surprised if you had a better defender than Donovan at all of them. But if you do, he can be your DH and you feel fine about it because he's an above league average hitter and he'll just fill in one day a week at every single one of those positions potentially. So he brings value no matter where he is standing defensively. He gets on base at an exceptional clip. He's a 36% on base percentage guy for his major league career. He has a good batting average, which is not the end all be all, but I think it sometimes does get a little underrated when it comes to situations like clutch hitting and runners in scoring position stuff. Hitting, getting the ball in play matters more in those specific situations than getting on base via a walk. Donovan, typically a 280 hitter. So you know you can write in pen. Brendan Donovan is going to bat 280. He's going to get on base at least 34 to 36% of the time, and he's going to have a little bit of pop, probably 10 to 15 home runs in his bat. That is one hell of a thing for a team that has a whole lot of uncertainty to have one guy in the lineup that every single year you can write it in pen exactly what you can expect out of him.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I was going through this list, I looked at Brendan Donovan kind of similarly to how we looked at Matt Carpenter in those first couple of years, where it was like, this dude is somebody that I don't think a lot of people consider to be an impact bat, a middle-of-the-order threat, something that's going to really take this offense to the next level, and Brendan Donovan falls into that same category for me. I don't know where he's going to hit. I know, BK, you've been projecting kind of like in that 3 spot. Could be the leadoff. Regardless, I know that bat every single game is going to impact it somehow. And although he's 27, to me, he's one of those guys that's going to be in the conversation of face of the franchise moving forward because he's still in this youth movement, if you want to call it, and he's consistent. So for me, when I looked at this, I was once again projecting impacting this year, but impacting the next couple of years. And Brendan Donovan is going to be a guy that I don't see getting moved by the Cardinals. I see the Cardinals looking at this and saying he's going to be a stalwart for us moving forward, helping along the Mason Winds, the Weatherholts, and guys like those.
Yeah, and I just had him lower on my list because when I looked at him and I was looking at, okay, when you talk about who impacts winning for 2025, it helped bump up his rating. But I'm leaning more heavily into the, hey, how does this player impact the future and beyond? And you don't really need answers on Donovan this year, right? Like, you know what Brendan Donovan is. He's a guy that we can write down now. Probably going to have a 340 on-base percentage. He's going to be a guy that can help you fill some holes if there's injuries across the baseball field because of his versatility. Like, there's no need for answers on Donovan because he feels like one of the few guys that you can, like, write down and pen for the Cardinals. This is what he's going to be this season. And that's really the only reason that he fell lower on my list. Sure. And it's not even a knock on Brendan Donovan. It's actually more of a compliment that I put him that low on the list because I don't need to get answers for him for 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, he's just a good player. He's never going to be a star. That's not the kind of player that he is. But I think he is the type of player that when you watch your team day to day, you gain more appreciation for Brendan Donovan. I'm trying, like, Jaden Schwartz was this for the Blues for years, where it's just like, hey, if you just look at the stat sheet, you're probably not going to be all that overwhelmed with what he produces day to day. But when you watch the games and you're invested, not just in one game, but 82 of them, you see the way that he can impact a game. Tommy Edman had some of this for the Cardinals over the years as well. And Brendan Donovan, to me, fits into that category. A lot of whatever your favorite team is, you probably got a guy that fits into that if it's a good team. Brendan Donovan has just always been that to me for the St. Louis Cardinals over the last few years. So Donnie comes in at number 8 on our list of the 20 most important Cardinals for 2025. You guys mentioned, I think he might be your 3-hole hitter this year. I don't think he's a traditional 3-hole hitter. I want to say that on the front end. You're going to want to upgrade that spot long term. But I do find it interesting today, the Cardinals in their spring training game. Now, it's worth noting, they do not have Mason Wynn or Jordan Walker in the lineup today. Otherwise, I think this is probably pretty close to your opening day lineup. They have Lars Nootbaar batting leadoff. He's in right field today, again, because Walker's not in the lineup. DH is Wilson Contreras. Left field is Brendan Donovan batting third. Arenado's batting cleanup, playing third. Alec Burleson is playing first base today, and he's batting fifth. Ivan Herrera is sixth at catcher, and then Nolan Gorman is seventh at second base. If you simply replaced Jose Fermin and Victor Scott at the bottom of that order, shortstop / center field, if you replace them with, I think, Jordan Walker batting eighth and Mason Wynn batting ninth, I think that's probably your opening day lineup, in my opinion. And I think it's probably the best way to construct that lineup because you have the high on base, low batting average of Lars Nootbaar, who is not trying to be something that he's not by batting in the middle of the order. So you have Brendan Donovan third, Burleson fifth with that contact rate that he has, and then Ivan Herrera is like a prototypical 6-hole hitter who just kind of has that all-around game that can either bat sixth or second for you. Mm-hmm. But in this lineup, he probably profiles better at sixth. So I think that's the right way to do it. I know some will be mad, though, because it probably will put Mason Wynn and Jordan Walker 8-9 in that lineup.
I don't think it matters where they're hitting to me. And I know people have that traditional mindset to where it's like, no, this guy should be in the 3-hole or the 2-hole. They just need consistent at-bats. No matter where it's going to be, show me you can actually be consistent before I try and project you into a certain type of hitter for my team. I need to see consistency, not from Mason Wynn. We saw it last year, but you want to build off of it. For Jordan Walker, I don't really care where you're hitting. You just need to be hitting.
And I care that you're not hitting towards the top. Yeah. Don't have any there should be zero pressure on Jordan Walker to open up the season.
Totally.
Bat him 8th or 9th, see what it looks like. I would not mind Jordan Walker batting 9th. Just because then you have the protection of Donovan and then the top of the order coming up behind him. But yeah, 8-9, he's somewhere down there to me in this order. I don't think there's any question about that. Wynn is really the one that I think becomes where do you put him in this lineup? And I think it's probably at the bottom.
I'm still skeptical they're going to do that because his last game he started, he did hit leadoff. Yep. So, I mean, I agree this is probably their best way to go about it with Nootbaar up top. I'm not going to lie, and this isn't a shot against Donovan. I want to throw up when I see he's hitting third.
I get it.
Because he's not a 3-hole hitter. That you need more pop in that spot. I would almost have Burleson hit 3. That's what I would do. I would go Burley in the 3 spot. He's got a little bit more power, contact, Don even more base. Yeah, and I don't even like Donovan really as a 5, but I prefer him there more than I do in the heart of the order because I think Burley's got better power than Donovan. Not by much, but I think there's still better power there.
The difference to me is you're less prone to slumps with Donovan batting third than you are with Burleson just because of their profile. Donovan is more likely to get on base more consistently, whereas Burleson will have probably weak stretches where it just doesn't look good because he's constantly swinging at stuff, so he doesn't have the inflatable raft that exists for him, which is this on-base percentage. So that would be my one retort, but I get it. I don't. The pop that Burleson brings is different.
And my hope, now granted this is hard for Ollie to do, break up this left garbage. the hope would be, and I don't want to put the pressure on him yet, but within the first month, my hope would be Herrera's the 3-hole hitter.
I agree.
That would be the hope. If he plays well and you are playing him every day, to me, he's the guy that slides into that 3 spot because that's a guy that can bring power. And it may not be home run power, and I agree with what Keith Law told us yesterday. It's probably more doubles power, but that's huge in the 3 spot. A guy that can hit for extra base hits. We know he can hit for average. He can get on base. He's got a little bit of slug. Like, that's the perfect 3-hole hitter if he can be what we think his potential is.
His history also shows 0 splits. Like, there is no
100%.
difference between right, left-handedness. He's good against both, and that's something that you want in that middle of the order. So that's the update for today. There is an update from the Blues as well, a positive one on Colton Parayko. We'll tell you what that is and get to your questions coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. We got an update on Colton Parayko. This comes from Jim Montgomery via Andy Strickland on Twitter. Jim Montgomery says that Colton Parayko is, quote, progressing very well. He does not expect him to need the full 6 weeks to return to the lineup. Alex, this isn't something that was worth reporting for you, but you were able to get some word around the team that it sounds like Parayko's doing pretty well?
Yeah, just hearing a couple of people talk up in the press box specifically about him, saying like the concern wasn't as severe as they originally thought, and it's now more just about resting it than there was of doing the scope and finding out there was an internal problem and then the full 6 weeks. So my guess is they're going to be very cautious with this, especially if the team is playing well. And even if it's not as severe as they thought it was, it's still a matter of letting him rest. But yeah, at least word around the press box was it wasn't as impactful as they thought it was. My tinfoil all along was Parayko returns on April 15th. Parayko returns for that last home game of the regular season to get a couple of games in, and then you're ready to go for the postseason. Now, maybe it's earlier if this is better than what originally thought, but I never thought he was going to be out for the full 6 weeks.
Right, so his last game was on March 5th. So we are, as of today, 2 weeks in.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's less than 6 weeks, 6 weeks would put you at the 15th.
Yep.
If it's going to be less than 6 weeks, you might be able to get him for those last, 3 games.
Maybe you get that last road trip, Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Seattle.
I think that's probably the hope. Maybe he goes to Winnipeg with the team.
Plays in
skates
Edmonton.
with them. And then Edmonton is the first game back. You take it easy there and then ramp it up over the last 3 games of the regular season.
What a first game to be back.
Yeah.
Welcome back. We're going to go against McDavid and Draisaitl.
Well, McDavid, Jamie said this a few different times. McDavid told Jamie Rivers on the fast lane, the most difficult player for him to go up against in the NHL is Colton Parayko. So it would make sense if that's going to be the game that they want him back for.
I've had that conversation with multiple players on the other side, like just going into those rooms on the weekends before the games and talking to them, and they say Parayko is the toughest defenseman to play against because he's everything. He's fast, he's big, he's got a long reach. They said he's very difficult to contend with.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Let's get into these questions for questions and answers from the 314. Guys, how do they make the cap work whenever he gets back? Not a problem. Is he even on LTIR technically?
No, I don't even know if he's on IR, to be honest. Maybe he is.
I don't think he is because you get unlimited roster spots for the post-trade deadline.
He's not on IR right now.
So you don't have to.
They have no issues with the cap. Right now, if they wanted to, they have $7 million in cap space. Yeah. So they're fine.
Who's in free agency we can get?
No, man. No. Phil Kessel's available if you want to go get Phil the Thrill.
All right, from the 618, Alex says, Tyler Tucker opened your eyes at all since the Parayko injury?
Open my eyes, no, because I think he's done exactly what I think he is. I think he's a third-pair defenseman. I love the physicality he brings. You know what I really like about Tyler Tucker? He's always ready to shoot. Like, as a defenseman, he is always ready to put the puck on net, which is a very good thing. It's the one thing that Scott Perunovich couldn't do when he was here, put the shots on net. So, open my eyes, no. I don't think it's like all of a sudden he's a top 4 defenseman. I think he's a perfectly capable third-pair defenseman, however you need him.
From the 314, Alex, what's more surprising to you, the Washington success or Nashville's lack of success?
Washington's success. I knew Nashville was going to be this bad.
We all saw this one coming with Nashville.
The moment they signed all 3 of those guys, I'm like, cool, this isn't going to work. And Pete Weber was telling Joe this last night. The Nashville Predators are the polar opposite of this year's Blues. Meaning the Blues are playing for each other, Nashville's playing for themselves.
Which is weird because they all got the contract.
They did, but when you're superstars and you're not putting up points and you sign a big contract, then it's me. Yeah. Washington surprised the hell out of me because last year they barely got into the playoffs, didn't deserve to be in the playoffs, and they got walked. And all they did was they made a trade for Jacob Chychrun, who, remember, a lot of people were yelling at us, Jacob Chychrun's not that good. Pretty good. Traded for Pierre-Luc Dubois, who was just a cap dump, and then got Logan Thompson. And that team, Spencer Carberry is going to be the coach of the year in the National Hockey League because Washington has been impressive this year.
All right, last one here from the 314. Given how well he's been playing, what kind of potential extension, would you talk about with Cam Fowler this offseason?
Nope.
I'm not talking extension.
Nope, not until next year at the trade deadline, then we could talk. I got to see what another year looks like. People got mad when they did this with Marco Scandella and when they did this with Nick Leddy. Fowler has been great. You got one more year. Do it again, and then we can talk about a 2-year contract extension to keep you around.
Cam Fowler will be going into his age 35 season when he is an unrestricted free agent. Age 35.
Yeah.
That is not the time when you want to be extending players early. If Fowler continues to play the way that he has, I would love to have him for his age 35 season, and we can talk about a 1 to 2 year contract at that point in time. Until then, though, I'm good. Cam, continue to play. You're doing great for us. $4 million is a fantastic deal for the Blues. I'm just sticking with what they've got right now.
I'd agree with that. I don't think there's any rush to extend Cam Fowler. I mean, you mentioned the scenarios where it didn't work out, so I'll stick with the idea that this may be a bad idea.
There's two guys that I'll give extensions to.
Broberg
and Holloway. Yeah. That's the only extension. I guess Hofer, but Hofer's going to get a contract no matter what. Those are the only guys I'm talking contracts with.
Would you bring back, at this point in time, it's could change based on what happens over the next few weeks, would you be looking to bring back Suter and or Foxa?
Yes, both of them. Yeah. But you're not going anywhere. And maybe Foxa could get multiple years. Suter's going to go year to year. Suter's going until his family tells him, all right, you're done.
I think Fox is year to year at this point, too.
Yeah. And to me, I'm not changing that fourth line next year because it's got an identity under Jim Montgomery, and Radek Fox is, in my opinion, what makes it run. So, yeah, I would go to both of them and say, what do you want?
And I think you're probably looking at the same contracts next year for Ryan Suter.
Yeah.
And you're probably looking at $1 to $2 million for Radek Fox. I don't think he's going to be some sought-after commodity. He's a nice, solid fourth-line center. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and get a $3 million multi-year contract.
His contract is still from what Dallas gave him. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. So, they paid him well for how he was performing, and obviously his role in game has shifted. Yeah, I think you're looking at what Oscar Sundqvist is making. And if you give Fox a 2-year deal and say you got $2 million, you're our fourth-line center moving forward.
I think they'll bring back Fox. I'm a little skeptical on Suter just because of the age. I think maybe you see Army just say
contracts made me wonder there.
Yeah, Tucker, and then you've got Kessel still here. They've got guys that can just slide into that spot. And if we're being honest, you can always go find a third pair defenseman that's going to be younger than Suter. It's not so much about the money. It's just dude, you're 40.
The only reason
that age matters.
The only reason I wonder with Suter is if you can move off from one of the bigger contracts for your defenseman. If you can move off from a Falk or a Letty and save some money and bring back a Suter who can play a third pair role, and then you've got the playing time. Because one of Tucker or Kessel are going to be a seventh defenseman next year. You're not playing both of those guys right away.
Well, the thing is, they both have to be here because Kessel, I think, has one more game that he can play before he's ineligible to go down, and then he has to be put through waivers. And Army mentioned this during the deadline. He's not going to make it through waivers next time. Kessel's too good. There are too many teams that are desperate for defensemen that he will be claimed by another team. So they might have to play the roster game, and that might mean Ryan Suter's on the way out, unless, as Alex mentioned, you can or want to trade multiple of these defensemen. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. In 15 minutes, we're going to break down the Midwest region, if there is going to be a region with upsets. I do agree with T-Bone. I think this is going to be the one. We'll give you ours coming up in 15 minutes. But next, the Blues are playing really well right now. Is this the beginning of a window, or is this a one-off and it's going to look like the Nashville Predators did between the last 2 years? We'll talk about that, give you our thoughts on it next year on 101 ESPN.
T-Bone here to tell you about my friends at DraftKings Pick 6. Hey, March Mania is here, and maybe you're struggling to pick which team's going to pull off that big upset, but forget about the teams. All you need to focus on this March is player stats to rack up big cash prizes with DraftKings Pick 6, and when it comes to massive payouts, DraftKings dunks all over the competition. All you have to do is you just have to choose more or less on player stats. Let's look at the Mizzou game when they take on Drake tomorrow. I'm thinking Caleb Grill less than 12.5 points, but I see big games from Tamar Bates and Mark Mitchell, so I'm going to take them for more than 12.5 points. Those three picks, $10 on that, can win you 50 plus. So download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use my code 101WXOS. That's my code 101WXOS for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as now drawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, we're going to get into our regional breakdown for today, which is the Midwest region. So if you got that bracket, pull it up. We'll break it all down for you coming up here in just about 10 minutes on BK and Ferrario. If there's going to be a region this year, Alex, that has some upsets to top seeds, I think it's probably going to be the Midwest. So we'll break that all down for you coming up here in about 10 minutes. Alex, you said this, I want to say 2 to 3 weeks ago now, that the 2025 Blues remind you of the 2019 Dallas Stars. Mm-hmm. And the comparison really began because those are the two teams that Jim Montgomery has been coaching for, right? Well, Monty had an opportunity yesterday to answer a question about that comparison, and I found it interesting because he basically just summed up everything that you had said previously about that comparison. Take a listen.
Very similar. And where it's really similar is I thought we were struggling going into the All-Star break. We had that 8-day break. We came back, and we started to play the right way. We didn't get the results like we've gotten here right away. But you could see it as a group. Our confidence was growing. Our trust in each other was growing. And the results came. I remember we had a 5-game homestand. We went 1-3-1. And I honestly thought we should have been 3-1-1. And I was really confident that we were going on the road and we were going to make the playoffs. And I'm starting to get that same feeling here, just the belief that, you know, we are going to control our own destiny. We keep playing the same way.
First of all,
hey, man, when
the
you're
crowd
right, you're
goes
right.
wild. Here's why I thought that. When you looked at how that Dallas Stars team went about it at the end of their season, it was a team eerily similar to the Blues that year. Now, they didn't go on an 11-game win streak, but everything about how they were playing was structured. We had Ben Bishop on that told us you started to see less and less odd man rushes and breakaways, which made his job easier. You started to see the structure in place and the defensemen getting involved in offense and depth of scoring. That's what that Dallas Stars team did. And when we had this conversation back at the beginning of March, BK, the final 21 games of that year in Dallas, the Dallas Stars went 13-6-2. And I said, if the Blues can do that in their final 21 games, that would put them at about 94 points. Well, since I made those comments, this Blues team has gone 5-2-1 in that stretch. He even said that this Blues team got results faster than what that Dallas Stars team got results in the season. So everything about what Jim Montgomery did that year feels like it's eerily similar to what the Blues are doing right now. Think about it. You're not seeing odd man rushes. Last night was the 14th straight game that they've allowed fewer than 30 shots on goal. They've held the opposition to very few high danger scoring chances, and even strength, which is where Dallas had a lot of their success, that's where they started dominating their opponents. So you're going to see the same results, in my opinion, as the Dallas Stars regular season. And what I think is really moving this thing forward is you're going to see the same results in years following that Dallas Stars 2018-2019 season. Now, I know Jim Montgomery wasn't there, but the structure was already in place, and that opened up the winning window for Dallas. And they've missed the playoffs once since that first season.
I was about to say, so let's put in context what you're talking about there, because Dallas hasn't just been pretty good since then. They've been one of the better teams in the Western Conference since that 2018-19 run. The next year, they went into the bubble year, right? And then they went to the Stanley Cup. And then the last 2 years, they've gone to the Western Conference Finals, each of those 2 years respectively. So they have developed into one of the top contenders annually in the West. You think this is the beginning of, like, the next wave of Blues hockey begins now? This is the year for that.
Yeah, I do. Because look at that Dallas Stars roster. And we had Mark Parrish on Monday. And Mark Parrish, of course, NHL analyst for NHL Network, said that this team is deeper and more talented than what they had in Dallas that year with Jim Montgomery. That Dallas Stars team had a 19-year-old Miro Heiskanen, so a inexperienced young defenseman, albeit he was drafted, 4th overall, but he was still a young defenseman. Roope Hintz was 21 years old, and that guy had 22 points and was a -11 in his first season. But they had a 26-year-old Tyler Seguin who had 80 points that year. Remind you of somebody who's also 25 years old and a really good centerman?
Or Thomas.
Yeah, or Thomas. They had a lot of other wingers, but listen to some of these guys. 32-year-old Alex Radulov, 29-year-old Jamie Benn. They had 24-year-old Radek Faksa, 35-year-old Jason Spezza. They didn't have Dylan Holloways who were putting up 50-plus points in a season in their first full year.
The Blues are strangely actually better situated than the Stars were.
Now, Dallas, the reason Dallas has done what they've done is because they continued to draft really well.
Yes.
They found a Wyatt Johnston. They found a Logan Stankoven. They found a lot of these pieces that were complementary. But why I think this window's open for the Blues now, just like Dallas, Blues have already done that. Blues have already drafted those guys. Zach Bolduc's kind of like what Dallas has found in like the Logan Stankoven. These guys in the AHL that just come out of nowhere. You might have your Wyatt Johnston and either Dalibor Dvorsky or a Jimmy Snuggerud. You've got a younger core in place. You've got the defenseman in place, and you've got the goaltender in place. So, yeah, I think what the Blues are doing is opening the window that Dallas opened in 2018-2019.
Do you have any fear? Because there's basically two directions that this can go, right?
No, there's only one direction.
One direction is you become the Stars. Yay! Woohoo! Pop the champagne, baby. We're going to the playoffs every year. Potentially going to get to the Western Conference Finals a couple of times. Hopefully it ends a little better than theirs has, where you do get that cup. But I don't think anybody would be upset if over the next 5 years you get to the Western Conference 3 times and go to the Stanley Cup once. That'd be a hell of a 5 to 7 year stretch for the St. Louis Blues. There is another way this can go.
No, there's not.
Last year, the Nashville Predators...
come on, man.
Through 54 games, were 27-25-2. This year, through 54 games, the St. Louis Blues were 24-25-5. So the Blues had 53 points through those 54 games. The Predators had 56. The Predators then went on a run of 25-3 down the stretch. They won 20 of their final 28 games, got points in 23 of their final 28 games. The Blues have earned a point in 12 of their last 15, and they're 10-3-2 in that stretch. If they go 10-2-1, they will match what the Predators did down the stretch from a year ago. The Predators then looked at that and said, we have arrived. We are not just a good team. We are a Stanley Cup contender and will be over the next few years. Let's go all in. It is time for us to put all of our chips in the middle. Let's go get some big ticket items this offseason, and they spent big in free agency accordingly. Why, in your opinion, Alex, are the Blues different than what happened last year with the Predators, where it now appears that that was a one-off and they bought early on what could be a team that's actually at the end of a cycle, not at the beginning of one?
So let me answer your question with another question. Do you trust Doug Armstrong?
I mean, yes, of course.
So that's the difference. Because I don't know if you guys saw this from the Montreal Canadiens general manager yesterday, Kent Hughes, because Montreal's been playing well. They've started to open up a little bit of a competitive window with a young core in place. And one of the reporters said, hey, Kent, do you expect yourself to be more aggressive in the offseason with cap space and some of the great players potentially available? And Kent Hughes responded saying, look, I'm not going to go into this offseason like a drunken sailor and start handing out 8-year contracts to 32-year-old players that I can't move on from the moment I sign the contract. He just basically said, I'm not going to be Barry Trotz. And that's the difference to me. Because what Barry Trotz did was went from one offseason saying this is going to be a competitive rebuild and we're going to start implementing younger players. He got way too horny about it and said, he got way too horned up about it. And he said,
relax over
no,
there, okay?
This is what he said. He said, we're here, guys.
SEC training next
We're
week.
here. Philip, this will be a good reference point for me. He said, we got Philip Forsberg and Roman Josi and Ryan O'Reilly. Let's go spend money.
Okay. So I think you just actually got to the point that I wanted to get to. Here are the ages of their top point producers from a year ago on the Nashville Predators: 29, 33, 34, 32, 30, 34. They also had Thomas Novak in there, who's 26-year-old centerman. Nice year last year, ended with 18 goals, 45 points. Probably most similar to like what you're getting this year out of Jake Neighbors. Different positionally, but similar in terms of production, what they're giving you. They also had Luke Evangelista.
Evangelist.
He is 21 years old, and last year had 40 points for the Predators. That's probably most similar to like what you're getting out of Zach Bolduc. That kind of a production. The Blues have Jordan Kyrou, who's 26, Robert Thomas, 25, Dylan Holloway, 23. You go beyond that, you've got Broberg, who's 23 years old on your blue line. Like, that, to me, is what makes this so different than what they did in Nashville. I actually think in some ways what they did this past offseason, I can kind of understand it to a degree, again, in Nashville, because they're at the end of a window. Like, if this was going to win, it was going to be now. Now, what they did wrong is they signed those guys to like 8-year deals, and now they're going to have hell to pay, and they're stuck. But I don't think there's really any similarity whatsoever. The only similarity is that both got hot at the end of the season. Yeah. Both started out poorly and got hot at the end of the year to potentially make a playoff run. But beyond that, there's basically nothing similar about them, in my opinion.
To me, why they're more similar to Dallas, look at what Dallas did the next season. They didn't go out there and throw money at all of these big-time free agents. You know what they did? They got a pretty decent contract for Joe Pavelski, who was a 35-year-old player that became a really impactful player for them. They brought in 34-year-old Corey Perry, and then they just said, we've got the young talent to just take over. Sagan and Ben stayed their top performers. Heiskanen played 68 games and was 35 points. Roope Hintz had 19 goals in 60 games. They said, we've got a young core that's ready to start winning. Give them the reins. That's why this is more like Dallas. Blues aren't going to go on the offseason and be like, cool, we were great. Let's go throw 13 years and $14 million a year at Mitch Marner. No, they're going to be like, we're good. We got all the forwards. Do we make an aggressive move to try and help our defense? Maybe, but we're good.
And even if they did that move to go out there and acquire a Mitch Marner, he's like 27. That's vastly different than what happened last year with the Nashville Predators, who went out and got guys that are over 30 years old that are not going to be a part of their core.
Right.
They're they're guys that you get to the end of their deals and they're geriatrics, and you're looking at them saying, "Oh my God, this is such an albatross." It had to work right now, otherwise it was going to be a disaster. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, have the Blues changed the way that you view their defensive core at this point? We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. But next, our regional breakdown of the Midwest here on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends out at Ted Drew's. You already know about it, but this is just me sending you a reminder that today is the perfect day to get out there. It's 70 degrees. Yeah, it's going to be windy and a little bit colder as the day moves on. That doesn't mean it can't stop you from enjoying that famous frozen custard that has been a St. Louis tradition since 1929. It's just off of Chippewa. You know the quality that you're going to get of that delicious frozen custard. Even after 96 years, though, the Ted Drew's family continues to uphold their commitment to quality and customer service, ensuring that every visit you go to feels special. I love doing this now with my daughters. Friday nights, we go out to Ted Drew's, make it a family outing to get the frozen custard. And whatever flavor you're looking for, mix and match, custard, sundae, malts, you can buy it in bulk, bring it home with you. Just make sure you go across the parking lot, though, when you're there and check out their gift shop. Ted Drew's t-shirts, Ted Drew's sweaters, hats, souvenirs, gift cards. Get everything Ted Drew's to support that St. Louis tradition. Go check them out. Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, let's get into a regional breakdown for the day. It is time for the Midwest region. And this is the one, Alex, if there is going to be upsets, and I'm not sure that there are going to be a ton this year. I'm skeptical of it. I think the 1s and 2s are as good as they've been in a long time. Maybe as long as I've been following the tournament, honestly. If there's going to be a region where that happens, it's probably this one. So let's get into it. What is the first round game? Not the team, Alex, but the game that you are most interested in.
Is this going to top Wisconsin, Montana?
Going into this region.
I despise you, but I'm sure you'll find a way to poke holes into this one.
We can't help you didn't hear the question yesterday.
I heard the question,
no, you
okay?
Didn't. You didn't.
No, it's on me. I didn't ask it properly. I should have asked it better.
Mine
Don't you
is
take that blame.
Georgia versus Gonzaga. Typical 8-9 intriguing matchup, but the reason I find this interesting is I think a lot of people like Gonzaga. I like Georgia in this game.
Oh, wow.
I think Georgia's more athletic than Gonzaga, and I think when you go SEC teams, it's going to be Georgia as the superior one here. So that is my more intriguing matchup, mostly because everybody's picking one side, and I actually think the other side's the better team.
For me, I'm going to the 5-12. It's Clemson
it.
McNeese because I think that McNeese team is solid. I think they are built for a better chance of pulling off an upset, unlike last year when they got just destroyed by Gonzaga. But I've been sleeping on Clemson, and Jackson told me this yesterday when I was talking with him. He's like, hey, Clemson, I really love them as a 5 seed. I was like, really? ACC's not very good. And then I read up on them this morning, and yeah, I can see why he's excited because they are very balanced. They're very deep. I look at that Clemson side and go, I think they should win this game, but I think they're going to have a run for their money with McNeese. I think this is going to be tight. I still think Clemson wins, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's the best game out of this region.
Yeah, I could totally see that. That's the one that I would go to as like the number one option for me from this region. But if I'm going to go different, I will go to one of the other games that I'm maybe most curious about. And when I first looked at the bracket, I was like, I'm taking the upset here. Purdue versus High Point, the 4 versus the 13 game. And this is a game where when I first became interested in it, it was because of the line. The line's only 7.5 in Vegas in favor of Purdue. That seems really low to me. So I looked into it, and I think it's off. I don't think this is right. I think Purdue will end up winning this matchup, and I think they're just flat out the better team. High Point this year had a good season, don't get me wrong, and they shoot it all right, but mostly they shoot it from the interior pretty well. They're a team that does not turn it over basically ever. They also really haven't gone up against any legitimate competition this year. What would you guess is the best team they've played this year in terms of their ranking in KenPom? There are 364 teams. What would you say is the best team ranking-wise that High Point has played this year in KenPom's rankings?
I'll say it's probably not a Power 5 school, so like a team from like the A10 or the American, something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was thinking.
Well, what ranking? What number?
Oh,
would you
I see
put
what
on
you're
it?
saying.
What would be your guess on that?
60? 70?
72.
Okay, I was just saying.
They
probably
have
somewhere in that
played
range.
2 opponents that would be considered quad 2 and no quad 1 opponents this year.
Oh, sleeping on them then.
They beat North Texas, lost to UNC Greensboro. That's it. That's the extent of their high-level competition this year. So High Point versus Purdue. Vegas seems to be respecting High Point. I thought I would respect High Point as well. I don't see it. I've got Purdue winning that matchup, and I think they end up covering. So that's the game that I'm most curious about in round number 1.
Well, I'm not respecting Purdue because that's my upset. High Point is my team. They're going on coming into this a 14-game win streak, and I know the competition isn't very good, but you guys know me. I love the teams that are coming in hot, and Purdue is not that team. Also, Purdue, of course, has been playing without Zach Edey this year because he's gone. I think that is going to be a massive difference maker. So I actually have High Point taking down Purdue as my upset in this region.
That's my upset pick. I've got High Point as well, and it comes down to Purdue's defense. I mentioned this with Oregon yesterday about how abysmal they were defensively in the home stretch of the season. Purdue's right there. In its final 10 games of the regular season, opponents were able to shoot 64.4% on 2-pointers. That ranked 351st nationally. And High Point can score. Now, High Point's going to give up points, too.
18th nationally points per game they score.
My favorite bet of the first round in this region is the over in this game. I like High Point as the upset, but that's also me looking at my bracket going, I know somebody's going to pull off an upset. I think they do it, but I love the over in this one.
I don't have an upset in the first round in this region.
You chalk son of a...
I don't have one. Play well.
Not one.
Well,
I had McNeese at first, and then I thought about it more. Nope, Clemson's going to take care of that one. I had High Point at first, then I thought about it more. Nope, not happening. If Xavier wins tonight, I'm going to think long and hard
That's my second
about
upset.
the possibility that Xavier ends up getting to the second round, and it'll have to make me reconfigure my bracket on the bottom portion of this thing, because I think they have a chance to beat Illinois because of their shooting. I do not believe Texas would win that game, but if Xavier wins tonight, I think they will be the first 4 team that potentially advances to the second round and maybe even to the Sweet 16.
I'll give a little quick peek behind the curtain. I said this today in the office. This region, to me, I went back and forth on, is it McNeese, is it High Point? I know somebody's pulling off an upset, and I finally convinced myself a High Point, but that's mostly because if I don't convince myself of that, I know Illinois is the one that gets upset because there is somebody that's going to go down as the higher seed. Illinois feels like the trendy pick to have that happen, too.
So let's get to the next thing, because I think it's related. The sleeper team that you think has a chance to come out of this region. I think it's Illinois.
Yeah, that's probably it, because I'm about as chalk as you can ask for, because after I have High Point taking on Clemson, and then I have Clemson beating High Point, and then it's Clemson and Houston, and I've got Houston taking on Tennessee in the Elite Eight. But yeah, it's Illinois.
I don't believe it. I don't think it's actually going to happen. Like I said, I've got all chalk here. I've got Tennessee and I've got Houston meeting in the Elite Eight. So I don't have a sleeper team necessarily, but I think it would be one of Clemson or Illinois. I would lean Illinois. I think their upside is there, but they've got to get stops and they've got to make their threes. Those are the 2 requirements, and I don't know how much I can actually trust them to do either of those 2 things. Multiple games in a row against high-level competition. I don't buy it, but that would be my team.
I guess if I was to go different, I could see Georgia, because I have Georgia, and I don't think Houston's that good.
I've got another one for you.
Hold on, can we get? Are we just gonna blow past? You went Georgia, and he went no.
Yeah,
just like the Randy BK. No.
So it's because of that. I should have been less dismissive. I apologize.
Oh no, I don't care. I'll be right, and I can celebrate that when I'm right.
I think Gonzaga is going to kick their ass in the first round. I also think that Gonzaga is the team that has a chance to do this. If you look at any of the predictive stuff, right? Go to KenPom, go to BPI, go to some of the team rankings stuff. Dude, they're a top 10 team in the country. This reminds me a little bit of Loyola Chicago when they went up against Illinois in that second round, and we all looked at it. We're like, wait, they're like 13th in KenPom. Why are they an 8 or 9 seed going into this tournament? And then they're going to go up against Illinois in the second round? That doesn't make any sense. They were totally misseeded. Gonzaga, if you're looking at a team that is most misseeded based on the team rankings going into this tournament, it's Gonzaga. Number 2 on that list is Louisville. I still don't understand how that happened, but whatever. Number 1 on that list is Gonzaga. Top 10 team by most of these predictive metrics. They beat St. Mary's in that final game of the season for them. Otherwise, though, haven't done great against the better competition that they faced this year, other than beating Baylor, who also wasn't very good this season. So I don't know how much I actually buy it, but if there's going to be a legit sleeper, quote unquote, it's probably Gonzaga, and all the predictive metrics say that they're a team that has the potential to do it.
No.
No. I don't believe in Gonzaga. I got Georgia. I'm with Alex. I got Georgia taking them down first round. To me, it's Clemson. I think if you're looking 4 below, I don't trust Illinois. I'm with you. I don't think Illinois can do it for multiple rounds. I think it's Clemson. They are so balanced offensively, and I think you're sleeping on them a little bit just because the ACC was weaker. I can see where they may be surprised again. I got them going against High Point second round. I think they win that. I wouldn't be shocked if they can pull off the upset and take down Houston when they run into them.
Ooh, okay. Next thing up. Team that is in this region, in the Midwest region, that you are most confused by.
Can I start?
I was going to say, we were just talking about them. I think T-Bone and I have the same one.
This is the region that I have the most teams that have that high or low floor. High ceiling, low floor. So out of curiosity, who's yours?
To me, I don't. They're not just the most confusing team in the Midwest. They're the most confusing team in the whole tournament. It's my freaking Illini squad.
Bingo.
Man, when they play to their potential, they can beat anybody. They can win this region, and I don't think that's a hot take to say. They can win this region if they can finally get this all put together because they've got so much talent. Problem is they haven't done that consistently, and when they hit adversity, everything just goes erratic to where they can lose to Xavier, they can lose to Texas in round 1, they can beat anybody in this tournament, they can lose to anybody in this tournament. So to me, they are the one in the Midwest region.
Alex?
That's mine. I look at this, and I think if Illinois can get the favorable matchup with Texas, they could beat them. I think Illinois could take down Kentucky, and then it's Illinois and Tennessee. And do I believe in Tennessee? Probably more so than Illinois, but if Illinois is on it, and they've got their stud guy that I can't pronounce his name.
Yakachonis?
Yeah, Yakachonis. Then I could see that team going on a run.
So this region has some injury questions that lead it to be a little confusing to me. Clemson has an injury issue with Dylan Hunter that they've got to deal with. Kentucky has some issues. We don't know what Butler's status is there. Who was the other team? Clemson. Oh, Houston. Houston also dealt with an issue right at the end of their conference tournament. One of their players got hurt. I think it was a groin issue for him.
Doesn't Kentucky have an injury too?
Yeah, Kentucky has Butler, one of their best players that's potentially injured right now. So there's a lot of issues in that way. I just don't know what the actual team is that's going to be on the court, similar to Memphis, where they just lost one of their best 3 players, potentially for the entire NCAA tournament, regardless of how far they go. So that makes me a little confused by them, but I'm going to go back to Gonzaga. What are you, Gonzaga? The predictive metrics are telling me that you're a top 10 team in the country. And then I look at your resume and it sucks. You don't beat anybody good. You waited until the final game of the regular season to finally beat the best team in your respective conference, and your conference isn't all that good anyways. Who are you? Are you the Gonzaga that we've seen that goes into the NCAA tournament and struggles despite having like really good wins in those years? Or are you a team that comes in kind of similar to like North Carolina a few years ago? Syracuse did this a while ago. Loyola Chicago has done this as well, where some of the predictive metrics are better than the resume, and then you go on a run as a result of that. I don't know which way it's going to go. They're the team that throws me off the scent completely because I don't buy their resume whatsoever. But the team, based on the quality of the metrics, is really, really good if you buy into that sort of thing. I normally do. I don't know if I can buy it with this year's Gonzaga. So I have them losing to Houston in the second round. Who you got coming out, Alex?
Houston. Chalk it up, ladies and gentlemen. It's Houston versus Tennessee, 1 versus 2, and Houston coming out.
That's what I've got.
I've got Houston as well.
Stupid bracket.
To me, they are loaded. And the funny thing is I said this earlier. I know they're probably going to disappoint me somewhere along the line. Houston typically does. Every year I fall for it. Every year I fall for it. And I'm falling for it again. And I think they are loaded offensively. They shoot the three-point shot well. They're great defensively. They force turnovers. But you're right. They play slow, and that typically leads to keeping some teams in it to where if it is Gonzaga or Georgia, they'll probably hang around because Houston just plays this slow style. But I think this is the year they finally do it and get to the Final Four.
I think so too. But, man, they have, in my opinion, the toughest path of any of the ones. Because I think Gonzaga can get them. I think Clemson could get them. I think Illinois or Tennessee or Kentucky, whoever comes out of that bottom half of the bracket, could end up getting them as well. They're the team to me that is most confusing. By the way, I actually lied. I have Tennessee coming out of this region. I have Tennessee
that's your 2?
Playing against Houston and Tennessee coming out of the Midwest.
So far I have
That will be a brutal basketball game to watch.
so far
They'll
I
make
have
a lot of shots. They'll just only be 20 shots combined from the court.
so far I have 3 1s coming out of the Elite Eights to get to the Final
Make it
Four.
4.
Yeah, I have 3 1s and a 2 seed.
The 4th is a number 1.
My Elite Eight, I have all 1s and 2s except for 1 3 seed. And my
2,
Final
1, 3.
Four, I have 3 1s and a 2.
Yep. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 3.
The Midwest and the West, I'm more chalk than I am in the other 2 regions.
Correct myself, by the way. Actually, Wisconsin, I have beating Duke, so I have that's my 3 seed in the Final Four. So 3 1s and a 3.
It has a chance to be a really fun tournament. And it has a chance, if all of these teams do advance, that Alex, you and I are kind of on, we think it's going to be a little more chalky this year. If we end up getting, Auburn, Michigan State, Florida, Bama, Duke, Houston, Tennessee, that's going to be an unbelievable high-level Elite Eight with NBA players all over the floor, stars everywhere. I mean, that would be a hell of a lot of fun to watch. It won't happen because that's what we're looking forward to, but it'd be a hell of a lot of fun if it
Excited.
does. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer. But next, have the Blues changed the way that you view their defensive core based on the way that they've been playing recently? We'll tell you next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to tell you about Rhino Shield. I love talking about changing the exterior of your home because I did this when we moved into our home 5 years ago. And now that it's warmer outside, you're going to be spending more time outside. And you'll look at your house and you'll start to see some of the paint chipping off or cracks in it peeling. And you'll think, man, this just doesn't look good anymore. You want to be the belle of the ball down your neighborhood and you want it to look great. And that's where Rhino Shield comes into play. And the best part about this is it's not paint that you're doing with your exterior. It's a ceramic coating that sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than any type of paint you're going to buy. Plus, it's waterproof, 100% waterproof with all the moisture you're going to get. It deflects 90% of the UV rays, which is going to help lower your utility bills. And it's a 25-year transferable warranty. They've been featured on HGTV, multiple different home refurbishing television shows. So everything about Rhino Shield is going to change the exterior of your home. Give Darren a call today. Tell him Alex Ferrario sent you and make your house look brand new with Rhino Shield. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25-RHINO.com.
Taylor Hendricks here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues with the win last night over the Nashville Predators. They're off today, and they'll be back in action tomorrow night with a critical game against the Vancouver Canucks as they host them. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5:30 with Alex Ferrario, and puck drop at 6:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. Cardinals currently in spring training action as they lead it 4-1 over the Washington Nationals. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, we've got the first four for you with pregame coverage starting at 5:30 for American versus Mount St. Mary's. And then after that game, we'll have Texas versus Xavier with tip-off currently scheduled for 8:10. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Beside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, the defensive core has been great for the Blues, especially since Colton Parayko has gone down. I was skeptical.
Think of the sentence you just said. The defensive core has been great, especially since Colton Parayko has gone down.
I wish I could go back to our time machine to the trade deadline and BK's like, Parayko's hurt, sell everything. Everything, get rid of it all. They can't make the playoffs.
Again, I'm admitting defeat on this. Now, it's been, 2 weeks, but...
Oh, there it is.
They have done... I didn't think they were capable of this without Colton Parayko. I didn't. And I don't think I'm alone in that. Maybe I am, and if so, throw your arrows at me, by all means. But I thought Colton Parayko was a top 20 Norris Trophy candidate this year. Conservatively speaking, he's the best version of Colton Parayko that we've seen.
Top 20s, top 5. Come on, man.
And so if you look at that and give him those kind of kudos, well, I also have to say missing him is going to be a really big problem for your defensive core. And Alex, it just hasn't been. They've been able to find a way to keep these teams out of the dirty areas. The high danger chances basically don't exist for opponents at 5-on-5. Have they changed the way that you view them defensively, not just for the here and now, but for the foreseeable future? Are you cool with this defensive core the way that it's currently constructed?
I am. And I never thought I was going to say that, but I think the reason I'm okay with it is because all of these guys that we were complaining about for the last couple of years, we were relying on them being a top pair or top 3 defensemen. You've got that figured out moving forward. Fowler, Parayko, Broberg, welcome to your top 3. I looked at this last night because the area I thought this team was going to struggle in without Colton Parayko was where are they going to get the offense from? I mean, Parayko has just been driving offense for this team. Since the Four Nations break, the Blues have the best top 4 defensemen in terms of points and plus minus in the NHL. 30 points, and they're a plus 27. Here's the part that's really fascinating to me. Parayko has played 6 fewer games than Falk, Fowler, and Broberg, and those 3, Falk, Fowler, and Broberg, have put up 25 points. 25 of the 30 points that they have scored since the Four Nations break have come from Fowler, Falk, and Broberg. On top of all of that, Nick Leddy, the one that I think a lot of people were done with, he is a plus 7 since the Four Nations tournament. Second best to Justin Falk, who was a plus 8. So defensively, yeah, I'm good because Jim Montgomery has a structure. And with that structure, you can plug and play whatever defenseman you want, and it's going to work as long as they're competent. And I think that's what Leddy and Falk are. They're great second and third pair defensemen. I'm not relying on them to play 23 minutes a night. Although Falk has done a really good job of that since Parayko has gone down. Next year, when healthy, Parayko, Fowler, Broberg, those are my 3 guys leading ice time. And then it's Falk, it's Leddy, it's whomever you decide to go with. This is a defensive core that I could look at and I say, yeah, you could win hockey games with this one. Would I like an upgrade? Absolutely. If you go out there and find another Broberg or a Fowler on the market, do so. But I am not going to be what I was the last couple of years saying, change the defensive core. You've changed it already. You're good.
I'd still be okay with an upgrade, though. Yeah. In an ideal world, I think this offseason, you're probably looking to make a trade to upgrade your defensive core.
Right side second pair is where I would look at it and say, you need to find something.
I think that's the hope. Now, it's not a need the way that it has been in the past. Like when you went out and acquired Philip Broberg, it was a need, a desperate need, in fact. When you went out to get Cam Fowler, had you not acquired him, I believe it would have eventually become a need this year to go out and get a player similar to Cam Fowler. Right now, you don't have that same desperation, which is honestly the best place to be in as a team where you can go out and make a move, but you don't have to go out and make that move. So you're not like the Toronto Maple Leafs at the deadline this year, sending a first-round pick for a guy that is now a fourth-line center for you down the stretch. Like, that is the worst place to be. Blues are in a pretty good spot, man.
Yeah.
If they wanted to come back next year and Justin Falk is your second-pair defenseman on the right side, I think he has proven enough to you at this point with the way that he's played over the last few weeks. He is capable of doing so in this system. I do have my questions about it. Is this a hot stretch? We've seen it before with Falk where he gets hot and then it goes back to what it was previously. So I would like to upgrade from there if possible. It's just not a necessity the way that it has in the past.
Just for me, I look at this and I say the reason their defense is able to do this without Colton Parayko is there's so many veterans back there. And why I'm just not going to be so quick to say get rid of these guys, although it would be nice to maybe get an upgrade of another younger defenseman. I think the advantage that the Blues have and why they're so dangerous is because they've got a group of guys that understand how to play in the certain situations of the game. It's like what I talked about yesterday with Braden Shen. You don't want to move on from a guy that knows how to handle certain situations in every aspect of the game. And the reason Nick Leddy's a +7 since the Four Nations break and Falk is +8 is because when Parayko goes down, you know that you can rely on these guys because they know how to play, but they don't have to be the alpha. You've already got the alpha. And in my opinion, you've got two alphas because I think Fowler's an alpha also. And Broberg's the alpha coming up. You're good on the top end of it. You've got the prospects in the system. I think where you're at right now is a really good spot to be, where you've got a lot of veterans and experience on the second and third pair. You've got the younger guys and the guys who are already the alphas. And then if you can find a slight way to upgrade and add more for the future, do it.
Coming up at 1:15, we're going to play a game of Can You Beat the Blues? We'll give you a category. You tell us if you can name as many different things within that category as you can in 15 seconds. So 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. At 1:15, again, we're going to play a game of Can You Beat the Blues? If you want to go up against a Blue today, text in right now, I can beat the Blues, and we'll pick 3 different contestants to go up against them in today's edition of Can You Beat the Blues? Coming up next, time for the junk drawer here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Let's dive into a quick junk drawer today. Alex, earlier today I was listening to TMA, and they were talking about how Jackson's going to be watching the game tomorrow for Mizzou on a live stream. He's going to be all alone while he's watching this. I was curious, for you, T-Bone, for the listening audience, what is your ideal situation for you as you're watching your team play in a high-stakes environment? So whether that's like the Blues for you, Alex,
sitting here in 101 ESPN studio.
or if it's T-Bone for you, the Illini on Friday night as you're sitting down to watch them in the NCAA Tournament. Or if it's for me, Mizzou. What is the ideal situation for you to watch that game? Are you at a bar? Are you at home? Are you with family? What's it look like?
I'm in my basement. I'm with my dad, and I have beer and appetizers around me. Like, that's my ideal setup. Now, obviously, for the Blues, I'm there most of the time.
Sure.
But like, if I could have a perfect world, I'm watching it in my basement with my dad, just focused on the game with lots of beer and appetizers.
Yeah, I don't mind if I'm out like with friends, out at like a bar watching the game, getting drinks, wings, stuff like that. Well, if I don't have a friend that's able to go to the game to go do that, then I don't mind just being at home, chilling at home, watching the game. Stressful, I can yell the F word when I'm frustrated at the Illini all I want. Nobody's judgeful, you know. Also, you don't end up with the possibility, you know, if Illinois did lose, I'd end up with a photo with BK like with his thumb up, smiling, while I'm sad, like the old Chiefs photo.
I would do that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
You guys are bad friends.
I don't mind either way.
No. Yeah, you're right. I don't have to be with people, is I guess what I'm saying.
Well, just because I'm rooting for the Drake Bulldogs doesn't make me a bad friend.
When I'm watching it depends for me on the setting.
You tell Kara she has to leave the house.
That's correct. Big game.
Don't
Never
talk
know what's
to
gonna
me.
happen again. If it's the NCAA tournament, I want to be at a bar. Because there's other games that I care about while my team is playing. So I'm locked in on my team, don't get me wrong, but I also want to be able to have an eye on the other games that are going on, and that's the easiest way to have multiple games on simultaneously. If it is like the baseball playoffs or the Blues in the hockey playoffs, like, just honestly, I only care about my team in those situations, and most of the time they're the one team that's playing at that specific setting. So in that situation, I want to be either at my house or at a buddy's place with some of my other friends around, and then, like you said, beer and everything, appetizers. But it depends on which one. This is the one, I think it's the only playoff setting that I want to be at a bar for.
I was going to say, because I will not go out to a public place if I'm watching the Blues in a playoff game.
Yeah, see,
I can't do it.
I can. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I would prefer to be at a house somewhere.
You know why I can't do it? Because I can't take the random person making dumb comments. You know, like, perfect example, the people that yell shoot at games on the power play. Like, I can't be out there and somebody's going, oh, this is a stupid play, because then I start arguing with them, and it takes away from the game.
I find those people hilarious.
Oh, God, I hate
got no
it.
problem with it.
I find them funny as can be.
My dad and I, when we had season tickets, when I was like just getting into radio and I was really into the Blues, we had a dude who sat behind us. We called him Mr. Hockey, because every single game he would sit there and break it down like he understood what was going on, and broke it down as bad as you can ask.
Probably why you know hockey so well today.
Probably. I said I'm going to prove him wrong.
I'm BK.
It was BK,
Coming up
actually.
next, what does this year's tournament mean for how we're going to view this year's SEC long term? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So how much is this year's tournament going to dictate how we remember this year's SEC? Because 14 of the 16 teams from the conference made it to the tournament. That's going to go down as a record, and it'll be one of those trivia facts that now every year, whenever you watch the tournament, you'll see who the conference was that had the most teams in it, and then they'll show you the graphic of the conferences that had the most teams make it to the tournament, and the SEC will probably forever be number one on that list up until eventually we're going to have like 25 teams in these conferences. It's just going to be conferences that are running everything instead of the NCAA.
We'll count that.
But until then, this SEC is probably going to be as good as it gets in terms of the quantity of teams that made it into the tournament. But Alex, how much are we going to remember that versus the performance that they have once they get to the tournament, in your opinion?
If we're going off of my bracket, I think we're going to remember the performance as being a dominant SEC year, because I think other than like one team, I have SEC teams getting beyond the first round, and I believe 3 of my 4 are SEC teams in the Final Four. So I think we're going to look back on this and talk. The narrative in the regular season was how great the SEC was and how all other teams kind of fall below them, and I think we're going to be saying the same thing after the tournament, because I have a lot of SEC winning in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think for the conference, if you're going to really take on the mantle of, hey, this was like one of the best conferences in a single season ever, they've got to win in March. If you end up getting to like the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, and there's like 1 or 2 SEC teams, I just don't know if you're going to be able to say that about the conference, because this is when the games matter, right? Nobody really cares what you do in the regular season unless you're really going to back that up by performing when it comes to the postseason. So I think that's what's at stake for the SEC this year, and I actually don't have worries about that. Like, I think they're going to be fine. I'm kind of with Alex. I keep looking at my bracket going, am I really going to do this with the SEC?
I know.
But I think they are just a well-built conference to where you should see a lot of these teams, and a lot of these teams have ceilings to get to these spots in the Final Four, the national championship. I said that about Alabama the other day when we were talking about them. Man, they've got a ceiling to win it all. Tennessee's got a ceiling to win it all. Same with Florida. Same with Auburn. Like, you should see probably 5 teams in the Elite 8, in my opinion, that come from this conference, and that's when you'll really be having that conversation of, okay, they truly were one of the best conferences we've ever seen.
So I'm in agreement with you guys. I think it's going to be a good year for them. I have 4 of my 8 teams in the Elite 8 are from the SEC. Yeah. I think the elite teams in college basketball this year are from the SEC, the way that we typically see in college football. I think a lot of the time we overestimate the depth of the SEC in college football because the top of the conference is so damn good, and they just have like 2, 3, or 4 elite teams on any given season, and then we will retroactively make the lower teams in that conference look better than they actually are. I think this is a year where the conference in the SEC is actually really good from top to bottom in basketball. But the thing that makes me question this is twofold. One, the SEC has 4 of the top 2 seeds. So of the 8 top teams in the bracket this year, 4 of them are from the SEC. Last conference to do so was the Big Ten back in 2021. 3 of those 4 lost in the first weekend.
Oh, jeez.
Was that the year Purdue lost as a 1 seed?
The only one that advanced to the Elite 8 was Michigan.
Oh.
So we've seen this before, where a conference was considered to be elite at the top, and it just totally crumbled, and it went incredibly poorly for them. Other conferences that have had like a ton of teams make it to the tournament. We've seen this before as well. I think it was the Big East, like in 2012 or something like that. They had like 12 teams make it to the tournament. Ended poorly for them too. They didn't have a bunch of teams advanced like the Elite 8, Final Four, etc. And then, so that was my first thing, is the history of this not super great for the teams that get a ton of, or the conferences that get a ton of teams in. The second part of this was what I saw yesterday from a nerd that I affectionately call him that.
Stop calling yourself a nerd, man.
Evan Mayakawa is on Twitter, and he does a bunch of stuff power rankings wise, and it's really, really great work. And during the regular season, he'll put out like the top lineup construction for teams, and he put out a bunch of stuff on Mizzou this year, so I started following him, and he did this how teams compare to your typical seed strength. So, like, how does Mizzou compare to your typical team that would be seeded on the 7 line based on his power rankings? And Mizzou is like a little lower than your typical 7 seed. You know who else is a little lower than your typical 7 seed? Ole Miss. And then you scroll over and you're like, okay, well, that's interesting. What about like the 3 seeds? Wisconsin, Texas Tech, Iowa State, they're all in line with what your typical 3 seed would be. You know who's lower? Kentucky. You go over to like the 8-9 lines, right? Mississippi State, little lower. Georgia, little lower. OU, little lower. Arkansas, Vandy. It's basically all of the SEC teams that made it into the tournament a little worse than your typical team that would be in there.
Yeah, but what do nerds know?
What do you do with that? Because it seems to suggest that these teams were carried by the top of the conference, because he views Florida, Auburn, Alabama every bit as good as their seed. In fact, he thinks that they are some of the best teams in the country and like they have every shot of making it to the national championship game. But it almost feels as though what I said typically happens in the SEC, where the bottom of the conference kind of carried by the top of the conference. His numbers seem to indicate that is also happening in basketball this year. What would that mean if it's true for the tournament in your mind? And how would that make the conference remembered long term?
I mean, for the tournament, there's going to be a lot of upsets, because I think a lot of people are doing what T-Bone and I do. You give the edge to the SEC, and if they're not performing the way that we think they are because of these numbers, well, then you're going to see a lot more disappointments. If that does happen, you're going to look back on it and be like, man, we were caught off guard by how good the SEC was compared to the other conferences. Because if they underperform, then yes, you'll look back and say they were so good in the regular season, but when you go to the tournament, what the hell happened? And then I think that's going to skew the way you view the bracket moving forward, when you think it's how we do it every year, where you think these teams are really good, but you know they're going to break your heart at some point. I think that's going to be the SEC if that happens.
I think if that ends up being the route that goes for the tournament, I don't know if it will say so much. I mean, it will be viewed as a disappointment as the conference as a whole and how you look at it. But I think it goes to what we talked about earlier, where then I actually think this will fall more in line with this could be more of a chalk bracket than we were expecting. Because what that means is then I overvalued the SEC conference as a whole, but that also means that I undervalued some of their top teams, right? That means I didn't necessarily look at a Florida, a Auburn, a Alabama, Tennessee, and give them their due justice for how much they carried. What was it, 14 teams into the conference? So
because these teams were so good that we applied their greatness to the rest of the conference.
So this is how it is, and it does end up going this route where you kind of see these Arkansas, these kind of 7-10s, maybe the 6 seeds in the SEC go out early. Then I think what that ultimately means is, this probably is going to be more of a chalk bracket because we didn't give our due as much as we should have to the top teams from the conference.
I'm fascinated to see how this goes, man. Because it's to me the biggest storyline in this year's NCAA tournament. Is the SEC as good as we thought it was? If the answer is yes, well, those teams are probably mostly going to advance, and a lot of those teams are ranked really high, so it'll lead to a lot of chalk advancing in your bracket. If it's not as good as we thought it was, if all of this was a mirage that was built on teams in the beginning of the season that were very experienced, the SEC this year was a very experienced conference, and they mostly beat up in the non-conference slate against the quality opponents were inexperienced opponents that they were going up against. If that then leads into the conference play, okay, you have this idea of what the SEC is going to be, and then they beat up on each other. Well, yeah, but was it built on a house of cards? Was it built on these teams that are going to eventually get better over the course of the regular season because they're young, they're inexperienced, they're going to continue to gain momentum going into March? Did we overestimate what they were based on what was essentially fool's gold at the beginning of the regular season? It is entirely possible that is indeed the case, and then they played a round robin against one another, so we never were going to be able to find out because they don't really play non-con games starting in January. So over the last 3 months, we've only seen them play against each other. I think it's the biggest storyline going into this year's tournament. If teams start dropping like flies from the SEC in the tournament, it will be the biggest storyline, and people will laugh and say, ha, they were never as good as we thought. The haters of the conference will say, that was all fraudulent. We should have known. Teams like Vandy shouldn't have been in. Texas had no business getting in. We talked all this about North Carolina. What about Texas, which got in with like 15 losses in the regular season because they were associated with a specific conference? So I'm super excited to see how this thing ends up going. I am hopeful that the SEC is every bit as good as we thought it was, because it will suggest that Missouri was also really good.
Someone's doing this selfishly.
If this is true, it might mean Drake's winning in round one. on.
Yeah. That would not be ideal for me, to put it lightly. All right. Hey, the tournament watch party is coming up this Thursday and Friday with 101 ESPN and Bud Light. Join us and the Fast Lane from 11 to 5:30 at Helen Fitzgerald's. That's on Thursday. Then on Friday, we'll be at Cyberg's on Dorset from 11 to 6. We'll be there from 11 to 2. Fast Lane's there from 2 to 6. Come on out, enjoy some food, a cold Bud Light, giveaways, plenty more at 101ESPN.com. That's where you can find all of the details. Again, Thursday at Helen Fitzgerald's, Friday at Cyberg's on Dorset. Our tournament watch party tips off on Thursday and Friday, and it is presented by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Coming up next, we're going to play a game of Can You Beat the Blues? Today's contestant is Jordan Bennington. We have our 3 contestants going up against him. The prize on the line is a hockey puck signed by Benner and tickets to see the Blues versus the Blackhawks coming up on March 22nd. Can You Beat the Blues next here on 101 ESPN. All right, it's time for our weekly segment called Can You Beat the Blues? Woo! The NHL can't do it, but we'll see if Joe, Sheldon, or Rob can today here on BK and Ferrario.
Nice.
The game's very simple.
Wagon alert.
You're going to get 15 seconds to name as many different things within a specific category as you can. And if you can name more than Jordan Binnington head-to-head in that same category, you're going to go down as the leader in the clubhouse. But then we'll see what the margin of victory is. Again, Joe, Sheldon, and Rob are our 3 contestants today. Whoever has the highest margin of victory against Jordan Binnington will be going home today with a signed hockey puck by Jordan Binnington and tickets to see the Blues versus the Blackhawks. That game coming up on March 22nd. Alex, did I explain the rules okay?
I think you did, buddy. I think you did. You did a great job.
All right, let's go out to the hotline right now to hear from Joe. We'll see if he understands the rules of the game. Joe, we appreciate you playing, my friend. How you doing? And do you understand how you're going to be playing Can You Beat the Blues?
Yes, I do. No problem.
All right, Joe. Well, today you're going up against Jordan Binnington, and it's not going to be easy. I'm going to be honest with you. Your category is bands. Name as many musical artist bands as you can. What?
He said, oh, geez.
In 15 seconds. On your mark, get set, go.
Oh, musical bands. All right. How about Steely Dan? How about Marshall Tucker Band? How about, my gosh.
Hey, Joe.
I almost did.
Come on. Joe almost dropped an
I
S-bomb.
moved my hand over there to the dump button.
All of
No,
us
I didn't. That was good.
Joe, it wasn't a great performance,
no.
but we'll see. Maybe Jordan Binnington doesn't know a single band.
Yeah, maybe it was a low scoring affair.
It was a 2-0 game. Maybe that's what it's going to be.
Maybe
We'll see.
Jordan
Binnington's
does
been a
post
part of it.
those.
Let's hear how he did.
Chili Peppers, Pearl Jam, Creed,
Okay.
Finger 11, Three Doors Down, Empire of the Sun, it's not, Grateful Dead.
I had 7. Is that what you guys had? Or did I 6?
I got
7. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
He whooped my butt.
Yeah, Joe, he had his way with you there. But you know what, buddy? You gave a valiant effort.
All right. Hey, guys, I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
And
Appreciate you tuning in.
Think of it this way, Joe. You almost said the S-bomb on radio. So.
And he didn't.
And he did.
Not
That's a
only
win for
did he
Joe.
not
He's got
say he
good
saved
self-control.
himself.
He's got good self-control.
Absolutely.
I
So,
do too.
That was Joe joining us here on BK and Ferrario. Alex says,
Joe dumped 0 times. Ferrario still won.
No, that never happened.
to be fair,
Probably should've been
Joe
2.
on the air 1 time, Alex on the air
Every
more
day
than 1.
for 4+
Yeah, but
years.
he's a pro at this, supposedly.
Allegedly.
Whoa,
Let's go out to Sheldon. Let's hear from Sheldon. We'll see if he can beat Jordan Binnington today. Sheldon, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'll try and top that performance there.
Well, it's a low bar to clear. We'll see if you can do it, Sheldon.
Yeah, Sheldon.
Do you
I think
understand
you're
the
good.
rules of the
Never throw Joe
game?
under the bus like that.
I do. Yes.
All right, Sheldon. Your category today, going up against Jordan Binnington, cereals. Can you name as many different cereals, breakfast cereals, as you can in 15 seconds? On your mark, get set, go.
Cocoa Puffs, Trix, Kix, Raisin Bran, Frosted Mini Wheats, Apple Jacks, Rice Krispies, Fruity Pebbles, Cocoa Pebbles, Chex.
I
got 10.
Yeah.
Did he say
Yeah.
checks twice?
No.
I think he just said it once, yeah.
Just making sure.
Respect to this man for saying Raisin Bran, because let me tell you, I bleep around with some Raisin Nut Bran every morning.
T-Bone, I feel like you'd be a cereal guy.
No, I
don't know anything about why. I just feel like you would be a cereal
Is
guy.
that because he looks like a child still?
there might have been a little bit of
Silly
prejudice
rabbit
there.
tricks
Do
are
I
for
look like a
kids.
guy that would like drink milk and put that in my cereal? No
Yes,
chance.
actually,
No,
100%.
no chance.
Yeah, I
No.
could see T-Bone waking up at 4 a.m. after like falling asleep on his couch at 6 p.m. and being like, man, I could go for a bowl of cereal right now.
One of the surprises of this show is that you don't eat cereal day to day.
I could see T-Bone eating Apple Jacks and thinking he's getting a healthy dose of apples. Right?
See, I view him more as a cornflakes kind of guy.
No, I mean, if I'm being honest, I could see him as a Raisin Bran type of guy.
Yeah, maybe.
Gotta help that colon, T-Bone.
I feel a little disrespected right now.
Oreo-O's?
Oh, yeah, Oreos or the Cookie Crisp. T-Bone's totally a Cookie Crisp guy.
What was your go-to cereal as a child?
Mine was Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
That was mine,
Or Fruity
too.
Pebbles, one of the two.
I was Cinnamon Toast Crunch guy.
Love me some Fruity Pebbles.
And then you have the milk. I don't like milk, but the cereal, the Cinnamon
Drink
Toast
it.
Crunch milk.
I never.
Fruit Loops was mine.
Now, as an adult, I refuse Fruity Pebbles because they stick to the bowl, and let me tell you, that is a bleeper to get off.
Half of our text line just says something about T-Bone being a serial killer. Well played, everybody. All right, Sheldon got 10.
I see
We'll
it,
see how
actually.
Jordan Bennington does.
Big cereal guy,
with
Benner.
his cereal.
Frosted Flakes, Shreddies, Nesquik, Corn Pops, Rice Krispies, Captain Crunch, Cheerios, honeycomb.
God, he was right there. Honey Nut Cheerios, then honeycomb. Not
Got it
good,
for what,
Benner.
8?
I had
I got an 8, so that's a +2 for Sheldon. Sheldon's our leader in the clubhouse right now. Well done by you, sir. You can indeed beat the Blues. That was a good performance by Benner as well.
Yeah, it was. You know, do you think Benner in his mind was like, I know these, but then halfway through he was like, I'm an athlete and my trainer's probably hearing this that I don't eat cereal, so I got to play this dumb.
I will tell you this. He said what I think is the worst cereal ever made.
Honeycombs?
Corn Pops.
Oh, I loved Corn Pops growing
Horrible.
up. Loved Corn Pops.
Absolutely. T-Bone, have you ever had a Corn Pop?
I don't even know what that is.
Loved corn pop. Honeycombs were the worst. Those and the frosted wheats where you just would rip the
frosted
top
wheats
of
are disgusting.
that and Captain Crunch where you would rip the top of your mouth from eating it. Disgusting.
What was it? Frosted?
Frosted? No, not the mini wheats. Those big.
Got little
You didn't like
frostings.
those?
No, my God, no! It was like eating a pine cone.
That's
still
true.
like those.
Honeycombs were disgusting.
Now that text line, that makes sense.
That checked out. You over there are totally.
I was over here like, hey, you don't like those, huh?
That one checked out.
All right.
You're the serial killer, not T-Bone.
Final contestant today is Rob. He's going up against Jordan Bennington in Can You Beat the Blues?
Rob the Bod.
Rob, how we doing today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're doing great, man. It's a beautiful day here in St. Louis. The weather's nice. We got the NCAA Tournament. We got the first four tonight. T-Bone's going to see which team's going to beat his Illini. Yeah. Rob, who's your squad in the NCAA Tournament?
I'm a Gators fan, so go Gators.
Oh, yeah, so you'll take down Mizzou again at some point.
Kicked our ass in the SEC
Hopefully.
tournament, that's for sure.
I like Florida win it all, baby.
Yeah, that's who I've got.
I'm going back and forth on this. I'm struggling with it because I feel like too many people are going to have Florida. And
It's either Florida or Illinois. I don't think there's another choice.
All right,
I've got
Rob.
Montana.
You understand the rules of the game. You're going up against Jordan Bennington, and your category today are things that you would find in a hardware store. Things that you would see as you walk through a hardware store. Excuse me. On your mark, get set, go.
Hammers, nails, 2x4s, lawnmower, gas, mulch, chainsaw, hedge trimmer.
Are we going to give him gas?
Hey, Rob, I'm going to ask you honestly. Have you seen gas at a hardware store before?
Okay, I should have specified. They have like the gas.
I get
they
it,
have
though.
like the pre-mixed
Yes.
gas for like your weed eaters and stuff.
He's right.
you know,
There is
like
the
smaller-
fuel.
Isn't that oil?
Well, it's oil and gasoline mixed together. So
What do you mean, what?
So you know what? I'm going to give this one to
Definitely
you,
not
Rob.
oil.
I'm going
No,
to
they
give
have
this-
the oil. They
Yeah.
have oil that you
It's
can
the
get.
oil, but what he's talking about are the ones where it's the 50-50 to where it's oil and gas mixed together for certain like weed eaters and leaf blowers. I'm going to give this one to Rob. I originally didn't want to give it to him, but I understand what he's saying.
Okay.
8 then, I think.
Thank you.
All right, Rob.
I got you, Rob. I got you,
I
Rob.
said thank you.
Let me tell you.
The 618, by the way, BK said it's a nice day in St. Louis, and immediately after I heard it, I ran into rain in North County.
Yeah, it's 40 degrees and
God,
wind
listen,
blowing
man.
outside. So when he said it, I'm like, yeah, I don't think it is actually.
What do you mean? It's 70 degrees outside.
It was 70 when
Sounds
he
like
came
a
in.
BKO.
I think it's like a 50 degrees outside when.
No, it's 72 degrees right now.
say
Now it
it's not
says
that
it's
cold.
raining. I don't think it's actually raining. Yeah. It is raining outside of our
Open the
window.
damn blinds.
What? Okay, well, what are you going to do? Let's hear from Jordan Bennington. How many things can he name that he would see at a
Beautiful day.
hardware store?
Lawnmower, weed whacker, hammer, nails, drill, drywall,
Oh, jeez.
lumber,
Rob.
drill, screwdriver, belt,
Belt.
lights,
Yeah. Oh, Rob. There was no stopping Bennett. He named 4 of them in the first 2 seconds.
That dude is a stone cold killer.
Yeah, he is. Ice in his veins.
Rob, it was a good effort, my friend.
You did
Thanks
great,
for calling
Rob.
in today, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Good luck to your Florida Gators in the tournament.
Chomp.
All right, Sheldon. Congratulations, man. You can indeed beat the Blues. You're going home with a hockey puck signed by Jordan Bennington. You're going to the Blues versus the Blackhawks game on March 22nd, which will assuredly be a game. You know what? I'm actually not going to finish that sentence. Sheldon, who you got in the NCAA tournament, my man?
I really want to see Houston do it. I'm not going to lie.
You want to see Houston? Do you have a favorite team?
Oh, yeah, Mizzou. I'm pulling for Mizzou.
Oh, okay, there we go.
We already said
That's
it.
what I'm talking
He's
about.
a Mizzou guy, and he wants Houston to do it. So.
Let's go, Bulldogs.
I thought they were Cougars.
He's talking about Drake.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Is it Houston Cougars? The Cougars?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Congratulations, man.
Way to go,
Sheldon,
guys.
well done, man. We'll get your information from you. We'll make sure you get everything that you won today, which is a signed puck by Benner and hockey.
Really, the only
tickets to see the Blues versus the Blackhawks.
not to be mean, but the only embarrassing performance was Joe.
And Joe knew.
Yeah.
Joe knew immediately. He heard the category and said, oh, God.
Geez.
And then he continued along that path. All right, Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, Chris Kerber here, folks, and Classic Air Care wants to remind you that the number one thing you can do to keep your HVAC system in top shape is actually change the filter. That's right. I mean, even though it's called a furnace filter, it actually plays a crucial role in your entire system. that the air conditioner uses the furnace blower motor to circulate the cool air through the home. You're going to need that with the heat starting to come here over the next couple of months. So a clean filter means the entire system doesn't have to work hard to cool the home. So beyond that, professional preventative maintenance is the best way to avoid breakdowns. It extends your system's lifespan. It keeps your energy bills in check. So go to classicaircare.com, set up an appointment, have them come out, have them maintain the unit. You can order filters right from the website as well, so you don't even have to leave your house. You can just get them. They'll be delivered to your house as well, and it will keep your home comfortable. That's what Classic Air Care wants to do. They do it for my home. They'll do it for yours. Go to classicaircare.com today and set up an appointment.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues took down the Predators last night, and they return home tomorrow when they host the Vancouver Canucks. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5:30 with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 6:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. Cardinals in spring training action right now as they lead the Washington Nationals 6-1 as they head to the top of the 7th inning. And then tonight here on 101 ESPN, we've got first four action for you. American takes on Mount St. Mary's. Pregame coverage starts at 5:30 with tip-off at 5:40. Then after that game, we'll have Texas versus Xavier with tip-off scheduled currently for 8:10. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Happy to go out to the Cali Aaron Thompson hotline to be joined by the voice of the Blues. He's Chris Kerber, joining us here on BK and Ferrario, as he does each and every Wednesday on the show. Kerbs, the Blues just can't stop winning. They seemingly pick up points every time that we talk to you around this time. What is it like right now to broadcast these games, Kerbs? It's got to be a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, you know what? I think, I don't know if it was a quote or if it was just something maybe that Matt DeFranks wrote in his article, but the biggest thing you're seeing now is the expectation of winning. There was quite a stretch, not just for the good chunk of this year, but last year, where you went into games and you weren't sure what team you were going to get, right? You didn't see, like, you weren't sure what the identity of your team was. So what team was going to get there? Who was going to be on? Who was not going to be on? That's not happening right now. And it hasn't been happening for close to the last 16 games. 17 games. For the last 17 games are 11-3-3. To me, the difference is right now you are going into every single game not just wondering if you can win. You're going into games expecting to win. And it's throughout the entire lineup. That's the biggest thing I'm seeing right now.
Kerbs, you and I have talked about this on postgame a few times of what Jim Montgomery did in 2018, 2019 with the Dallas Stars and what he's doing now and some of the similarities. And even Monty confirmed that yesterday in the media availability. My question to you is, could this be the similar opening of a competitive window like Dallas had in 2018, 2019?
Oh, listen, that competitive window, the competitive window opening for the Blues started last year. Okay, I mean, it really did. And then the signings that they did this summer were big. I talk about this, and it's how I ended the Curbside podcast. If fans haven't downloaded and listened to last night's reaction yet,
and honestly, shame on you if you haven't.
Yeah, it's an awesome thing to listen to, especially for these late games.
Yeah, thanks. It's just, if you miss any part of the game, you get the highlights and you get some analysis. And I usually take the last segment, just kind of give my thoughts on something related to the game or what's going on. And yesterday's really dealt with the decisions of Doug Armstrong. The aggressiveness for the two signings, the aggressiveness to make a coaching change, and then the aggressiveness for Cam Fowler in December, right? Rather than wait till a trade deadline. And you look at those, and fans may say, well, they weren't very active at the trade deadline. Well, they didn't need to be. They didn't need to be all that active because of what they had and what they did already in advance. The deadline deal for the Blues was Cam Fowler. They just did it in December. And I just look at that, and that to me kicked in that competitive window that began last year with Robert Thomas taking the first real step into full-time centerman spot, that kind of stuff. Now that they've got that belief system, look, it's absolutely opening up right now. Now, and then how it look, are they going to make the playoffs? Are they going to win tomorrow? I have no idea. I mean, I don't know. I don't have that kind of crystal ball, right?
Yeah, they are, Chris.
But what you do know, I love the confidence, but what you do know, right, is that you are seeing now the product that you will expect next year, right, for a full season. You're seeing now the product with other steps to go. I even asked Jim Montgomery yesterday. I said, look, everybody's playing on the same page right now, right? Everyone's doing what you're asking them to do. Is there still another level, or is this what you're looking for? He says, actually, I still believe there's another level when it comes to certain details and certain other aspects of the game. So, I mean, you got to be really excited when you see that. Jim, I know he believes that this team right now actually has more scoring ability, more offensive ability than his team did in Dallas. He knew they had to change their system and knew that they were going to have to lock down 3-2, 2-1 games. He knows that he's got more offense with this team than he had in Dallas, and they're showing it right now.
All right, Kerbs. I do want to ask you about one of the players that had another great game last night. He's been on a heater. He's really been on a heater since Jim Montgomery took the job. It's 23-year-old Dylan Holloway, who's now on pace for 26 goals, 65 points, and a plus 15 on the ice for the Blues this year while averaging about 17 minutes per game. Kerbs, you have a Rolodex of information available for you that I simply don't have access to based on your history around this organization and this team. Can you put into context for us what you're seeing right now from a 23-year-old having this well-rounded of a game this quickly in his career?
Well, okay, so this is an interesting thing, guys. Let's go back to when Doug Armstrong made these signings. And, the Edmonton Oilers obviously took a lot of heat, right, for not finding a way to get them done. But these were two players that didn't play a regular season role for them. They were in and out of the lineup. They were up and down from the minors. Yes, they played a larger role in the playoffs, okay, but there really isn't a great there wasn't a wealth of experience for them. Look where the Edmonton Oilers are right now. The Edmonton Oilers are still have a chance to win the Pacific Division, all right? So things have been fine for Edmonton. Joe and I were talking about this a bit last night. Dylan Holloway, I don't really know. I'll ask him tomorrow when we get to the rink. I don't know that Dylan Holloway has the same season he's having this year if he had re-signed in Edmonton. And it's one simple reason. It doesn't mean that he didn't have the ability. It doesn't mean that he didn't have the skill. I don't believe he was going to have the opportunity. When you're getting all the ice time that you're getting, right, like for Draisaitl and for McDavid and for Hyman, okay? I just don't know that the same opportunity to play power play that he's playing right now, to play the minutes he's playing in the top six. I just don't know that they were going to be there. And, guys, that's a big part of things for young players, no matter the sport, in terms of whether or not they can show it, is sometimes it's an opportunity. The Blues sniped them from Edmonton after Edmonton did all the hard work of developing the young guy, right? So as he's ready to step in the role, the Blues had the opportunity for him to step into a role. I don't know that the Edmonton Oilers did. I really don't. So to me, I think what you're seeing is great. You got to love what you're seeing. I'll be honest with you. I don't know where the ceiling is yet for him. There's so much to his game, his speed. You're seeing a pretty doggone good to elite shot now on the power play. I mean, he's opening eyes there now that they're getting him one-timer opportunities. His relentlessness on the pucks. Dylan Holloway's turning into one heck of a power forward at a very young age, and you've got to be really excited for what he's doing right now. And they're just, I mean, I'll make the case that I think he's been your most consistent forward all season long.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect case to make, and I really couldn't argue that one with you, Kerb. Speaking of opportunity, though, the Blues have done a really good job without Colton Parayko, specifically guys like Justin Falk, Cam Fowler, and Philip Broberg, and Nick Leddy playing the top 4 minutes that Colton Parayko typically plays. But it sounds like earlier today, Jim Montgomery talked a little about Parayko, saying that he might not need the 6 weeks that they originally thought. Do you know, or have you heard anything, Kerbs, on Colton Parayko?
No, I haven't talked to Colton about it. I know he had the procedure a couple days after the injury. I know he is eager to get back. I know I did talk to him, and he was still, looking at a 6-week window at the time, but that was prior to his surgery. And sometimes, guys, what happens is you go in, they go in with the scope rather than just the imagery, and maybe things weren't as bad. Maybe they're cleaned up a little bit easier, right? However that kind of stuff goes. So, I don't think you're looking at anything shorter than 4, to be honest with you, but you're still potentially looking at that window. Listen, you mentioned those other 4 guys. I don't think you can talk about the Blues defense without mentioning that pairing of Suter and Tucker.
Yeah, you're right.
Tucker stepped into that lineup the moment that Colton went down. And you know what we haven't focused on during the game, or you know what we haven't focused on in post-game shows is, well, he got burned here, he got burned there. He's got to – you see the young – we haven't said that, have we, when it comes to Tyler Tucker? So they're all doing a great job. And, I mean, as Jim Montgomery said yesterday, we're going to be even that much better than when Colton if and when he's able to get back in this lineup. But Justin Falk has just been outstanding. Nick Leddy has been outstanding. Broberg, Fowler. But you have – guys, look, you got to give credit to the forwards when we're talking about those 6 defensemen. Because you remember all last year, we're talking about backdoor chances and all those opportunities going in. The forwards weren't as committed to playing the right way in the defensive zone, and the defensemen were left out in the cold quite a lot. Those forwards are handling it now right, and that's why you're seeing these defensemen having options to kill plays and get it out of the zone like they did. We're seeing more of those passes out of the corner to the middle of the ice, the old Nick Lidstrom exit that you saw all those years with Detroit, and that's because of the commitment of the forwards doing it right too. It really, truly, when it comes to defending in your own zone, is that team game.
Chris Kerber is the voice of the Blues. You'll hear him on the call tomorrow night for what now becomes the biggest game of the season, Blues versus the Canucks. Pre-game coverage with Alex begins at 5:30. Puck drop for that one at 6:30, right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Kerbs, appreciate the time, man. This is fun as hell to watch. It's a lot of fun to hear you guys on the calls. We'll talk with you again next week.
All right, guys, have an awesome week.
Absolutely. You do the same. That is Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, joining us here on 101 ESPN. I mentioned Holloway, some of the numbers that he's producing, now on pace for 25 goals, 65 points, a plus 15 on the ice. Alex, guys, his age to do that over the last 5 years, there's only 5 of them. Seth Jarvis, Jason Robertson, Cale Makar, Andre Sveshnikov, and Austin Matthews. End of list.
Yep. To me, I've made the comp before. Dylan Holloway reminds me a lot of what Jaden Schwartz was. And Jaden Schwartz, his first full season with the Blues when I believe he was 21 years old, 25 goals and 56 points in 80 games. The next season, 28 goals and 63 points in 75 games.
I think he's a 30-goal scorer.
Yeah, I think he's a 30-goal scorer. I think he's a 60 to 75-point producer. And I do believe what Kerbs mentioned. I believe he is a top-line I think he's a fringe top-line winger for how consistent he is with the way that he plays.
Hell of a hockey player.
He's a
For you to be
unicorn.
able to get him via the RFA status, I mean, it's just crazy what Doug Armstrong was able to pull
Thanks,
off. This
Edmonton.
offseason. Coming up this weekend on Saturday, Alex, myself, Jamie Rivers will be out at Max in downtown Alton, Illinois for a Circus Sports Illinois watch party. Alex and I are going to be out at... We've got Helen Fitzgerald's on Thursday. We got Cyberg's on Friday. We'll be out at Max on Saturday. Come on out. Enjoy some great food, cold drinks, prize giveaways, and nonstop basketball action. Plus, download the Circus Sports Illinois app, and you'll get in on the games, watching it all unfold. It's Saturday, 6 to 8 o'clock out in downtown Alton, Illinois. More details at 101ESPN.com. We'll hit the rewind coming up next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app is super easy to use. It is also free to download, and it is presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Unlike what Splashback Deuce has to say over in the YouTube chat, I think it's been a pretty damn good show today.
Splashback doesn't like our show today?
He always gets a little upset.
Why?
He gets the ants in the pants and gets frustrated and says that we say things that make him mad. And then, you know,
Well, you know what,
Deuce, huh?
Splashback Deuce? You say things that make me mad.
Yeah. You deuce.
it happens.
Yeah, you're a real deuce,
We'll all stay in
Splashback.
our lanes. It's all good. All right, so Blues were in action last night. They're back in action tomorrow. We'll preview that game in its entirety tomorrow. We're going to have a lot of time on that game.
Yeah, we are. All day.
We'll also talk about Mizzou's game, which is taking place tomorrow night.
They're going to lose.
No nerves in that whatsoever.
Let's go, bold.
Big
Drake's
game
just-
tonight. There's two of them. American versus Mount St. Mary's.
That's a big one. That's a really big one.
That's the first one. Who you guys got in that one?
Mount
American
St.
is a
Mary's.
2.5-point favorite.
No, it's Mount St. Mary's every day. They're from
No idea.
Maryland.
Are they? I would go American.
Oh, dude,
in
if you
this
think
one.
that I don't have to Google this, you are.
Or it's Montana, one of the two.
I'm going American.
I'm going Mount.
I don't know where American is. I think it's
Mountainous
in
area.
Washington.
Yeah, take a guess on where American
Why do you come
University
with
is
such a
located.
tone for a school that nobody in this room's heard of till literally about a week ago?
Where do you think American University
Dude,
is
that
located?
is
America?
Yeah, that's a good
Smart, you know what?
T-Bone, that was a really dumb thing to say.
No, it was, I don't think that was that bad of a question.
Where do you think it is? Well,
Which
if you had
one?
to guess, America.
American.
My guess is
America.
Washington.
DC.
DC.
Yes, that's correct.
What, do you think American University's
Which
in
one of you
Delaware?
said Mount St. Mary's in Maryland?
I did.
He did.
That's correct.
Really? I thought that was on the West Coast.
Wow. No, I
Mount
figured it was a
St. Mary's.
mountainous area. I just didn't think Maryland was going to be it.
Emmitsburg, Maryland is where it is located.
Emmitsburg. I'm very familiar with Emmitsburg.
Of course you are.
Yeah.
So you
Heard
guys...
they've got great crab legs in Emmitsburg.
Xavier versus Texas is the real, that's the big one tonight. Winner of that takes on Illinois in the first round of the NCAA tournament on Friday. Alex, I'm going to start with you, and then I'm going to come to me, and then we'll finish with T-Bone's thoughts on this. Who do you think will win in this game? Who do you think Illinois fans want to avoid from this game?
Xavier, to me, is going to win this game. I think they're the better team. I think Illinois is really, really hoping that Texas wins because Texas, to me, is an Illinois victory. Xavier is an Illinois loss.
I agree with T-Bone. Or, excuse me, with Alex.
Oh, T-Bone, we agree with you.
I think Xavier will win this game. I think the teams are really close, but Xavier can shoot. They're a really good three-point shooting team.
Texas cannot.
And I can't wait for T-Bone to get on the show tomorrow and be fearful of Sean Miller and the Fighting Musketeers who are going to be taking on his Illini. So I do think Xavier wins, and that is definitely the team that
T-Bone's
you
a
don't
big Longhorns up.
Yeah, I definitely want to avoid Xavier in this one because of the three-point shooting. Because my fear is they would get hot against Illinois. Then Illinois would go, we got to shoot the three, too. And then they'd be building a brick house in that game. But I think Texas wins tonight. I think Texas will slow them down enough offensively or defensively they'll slow down Xavier enough to where it will give them a shot to win this one. I like Texas to win this one.
We are going to be broadcasting live tomorrow from Helen Fitzgerald's. We'll be there at 11 o'clock. Come on out, say hello, get some drinks with us. We'll be watching the games out there. Bracket is set. Sign up right now to play in this year's Bracket Madness Pick'em Challenge at 101ESPN.com. It's free to enter, and this year's top score is getting a $250 Amazon gift card and a 101 ESPN prize pack. Our Bracket Madness Pick'em Challenge is available at 101ESPN.com, and it is presented by Bud Light. We will talk to you guys tomorrow, give you our final thoughts on the NCAA tournament. We'll react to tonight's game from the NCAA First Four, and we'll start previewing what is now the biggest game of the Blues season. Plenty to get to. We are excited for that tomorrow. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.